Can you smell that? Can you smell that bacon? No, I'm not having a go at Kasper Schmeichel just because he kept a clean sheet last time I saw him. He was getting 3 goals past him in his own ground, so I'm no bitter that way. No, it's nice bacon. I can smell that. The Danish stuff, the proper Danish stuff. What in the name of Kaja Hansen, Erik Bo Anderson, and Brian Laudrup is going on? This Scotty Wilson guy, Andy Scott Wilson, that's what I thought his name was. Skov Wilson. Andreas Skov Wilson, he's signing for us. Apparently, it's not been completely confirmed yet, but he seems to be on his way, and it's just we've got CHUKWUANI. He's a Danish under 21. You go back to Karl Hansen, the manager's talking today, Thursday, in his pre-Annan press conference, talking about how he's arranging already. The Rangers are planning ahead and arranging the pre-season friendlies. Go to Denmark. Play somebody for Denmark. Just go to, because it's always worked well for us. Back to Karl Hansen, 1920s, was supposed to be the guy. Wasn't he supposed to be the guy that's the first foreigner to score on an Old Firm game? I don't know how that works. It was like 1924, 1925. He scores against Celtic, first foreigner. What is a foreigner? Are we talking about anybody outside? Because if it's anybody outside Scotland, which in football terms it is, Scotland has its own national team, so does England, so does Wales. So anybody from those countries scoring on an Old Firm game. In Ireland, I know, for up until 1924, 25, only be a few years that Ireland wasn't actually. I've not got that Old Firm fan kind of professorial level of knowledge about Irish history and that, but apparently there was some kind of controversy about it at the time, and a lot of people still feel it's quite controversial to this very day, apparently. But I think it was around about 1922 that Ireland, the south of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, I'm not doing that in the south. I know Paddy Bonner is an Ulsterman and he comes from further north than most folk that played for Northern Ireland and stuff. I know, I get all that kind of stuff, but I'm just, politically, when it broke away, that was a problem. That was a problem, wasn't it? Didn't it break away? Didn't it actually break away? It's still attached. That's what's caused all the tension. But the Republic of Ireland became the Republic of Ireland as opposed to being part of Britain. Was that around about 1922? So strictly speaking, anybody from there in Celtic have a great history, a rich history of players from the Republic of Ireland or Ireland, players from Northern Ireland as well, scoring against Rangers, I would imagine as well. Half of them would score against Rangers. They stole the whole Hibs team back in 1887, 1888. So you would think that some of them have scored against Rangers. And at one point, they might actually have been non-British, so to speak, as well as just not being Scottish and foreign in that sense. I don't know how that. I'm excited. I'm getting a bit overexcited because of But Karl Hansen did one of our famous tours of Denmark, or involving lots of Danish clubs back in the day, 1920s. Went over to Denmark. I don't know if it was just, we didn't have European club competition in those days, so I don't know if it was a pre-season tour or if it was just part of spreading the word, the famous, spreading the word of Rangers around the globe as they did in those days. But they played against Danish club. Karl Hansen, the shoemaker, he plays well against us. Get that boy over, get him, bring him back with us. He's going to play, and he played for a few seasons at Rangers and was thought to be the first foreign guy to score in an Old Firm game. And that's like, Kaja Hansen scoring the 1966 Scottish Cup final replay against Celtic. Erik Bo Anderson did 2 goals at New Year in 1997, which effectively sealed the 9th of 9 in a row. And Brian Laudrup, some of you Rangers anoraks out there might remember some obscure, quite an obscure Rangers career. You might remember him doing something significant, but let me know. The general thing is, if you can remember the time of the goals, who scored them against, with Celtic, who you were beside, what year it was, what day it was, what date, what time of the day it was. If you're watching it on television, if you can remember who you were watching it, whose house you were watching it, and what the make of the television was, if you can remember the registrations of passing cars, because so significant were the goals that these guys scored for us. We just got a rich history of Danish players. No, Celtic, they had Larsson, we had Laudrup. It's Sweden versus Denmark. That's a big thing. Scandi, we're carrying that on. The rivalry. I mean, they like Morten Vighorst, and they've got Kasper Schmeichel just now. They do have Danish players in their history, Celtic, but no, they've not really worked out to be the best, have they? Come to Rangers, you're a god if you're Danish. We've Swedish guys. Would you call it? Scores a goal against Celtic, but it turned out to be he played for Roma in that. Jonas Tern, he scores a goal against Celtic, beat them 2-0, but at the end of that season, a few weeks later, didn't turn out too good. So that kind of stains what happened with him. Robert Pritz, the greatest Swede ever to play in Scottish football, Robert Pritz, but he's more about our Olympic Stadium Munich thing, our link, we've got to players who played in a European Cup final in the Olympic Stadium in Munich. We played in the 1979 European Cup final. Robert Pritz for Malmo against Nottingham Forest. Trevor Francis scored the only goal of the game. He signs for us later on as well as Robert Pritz. Basil Bowley scores the winner the next time the European Cup finals. It's called the Champions League by that time, the first Champions League final. He scores the only goal of the game for Marseille against Milan, and we sign Basil Bowley. He comes and plays for Rangers. And in 97, the Olympic Stadium Munich hosts the Champions League final again, when Juventus get beat 3-1 off Borussia Dortmund, and Stefan Klos and Sergio Parini are playing one on each side, and they end up signing for Rangers. That was more about our link with the Olympic Stadium Munich European Cup finals than any kind of link to Sweden. But the Swedes, I mean, Celtic fans, they idea themselves, the Swedes are supposed to be more chilled out, supposed to be better looking than the Danes, so their mums are rocking out, they're patting their hairs down before sending them out to Parkhead to the game with their sandwiches and that. They're like, oh, you're good looking, son, you're just like the Swedes, if who, that's how the Swedes... That's how the Swedes talk, whereas the Danes, when my mum used to send me out to, she would break a bottle, snap the end off it, and then, right, son, you use that, you're going to your own sport, go and get stuck in. When I was going to Ibrox, they was going to slap me about the face and all that kind of thing, give me a blade to take with me, because the Danish are a bit more kind of pugnacious, and they're seen as being kind of a bit uglier, let's be honest, they're seen as being a bit uglier, and that's Danish, that's fluent Danish that I'm speaking there, that's what that sounds like. So the Danes are more suited to Rangers, I think that's what's happened. But the one thing about the Swedes is there's only been 4 Scottish teams have played in a European final. Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, Dundee United. Swedes have scored against 3 of those teams in finals. We had, it's mainly with us, it's Russians. It's honours of Russians scoring against us in European finals. But 1961 Cup Winners' Cup final, the famous Kurt Hamrin, Swedish international Kurt Hamrin, he scored in the away leg in Florence. He scored in the second leg against us. Not the last Cup Winners' Cup final he would score in. And you had Ove Kindval scored for Feyenoord. The Austrian manager Ernst Happel. Feyenoord had we've got Sturm Graz, we've got a Danish guy for Sturm Graz, Austrian. Ove Kindval scored for Feyenoord against Celtic in the 1970 European Cup final, when Feyenoord beat Celtic in that European Cup final. And of course, Dundee United got to the 1987 UEFA Cup final, and they lost to Gothenburg. And you had Lennarts and Lennart Johansson. I can't remember. Lennart Johansson was a guy that's UEFA president, wasn't it? Is it Pettersson and oh God, that's terrible. Stefan Pettersson. One goal in each leg anyway. They won 1-0 at the Ullevi, Gothenburg in the first leg, and then they drew 1 each with Dundee United at Tannadice in the second leg to win the thing. But a Swede scored, an all-Swedish team. Well, they had one Norwegian guy, I think, in the team. Dundee United were all Scottish. But a Swede scored in each leg. But Celtic are the only one of the 4 Scottish European finalists to have a Swede score for them as well. Henrik Larsson scoring against Porto when they couldn't even take their Seville UEFA Cup final to penalties the way we did. But I don't know. I'm just not trying to set up that thing of Celtic and anti-Scottish. They betray Scotland. I'm not trying to do that. That's terrible. That kind of stuff's beneath me. It's just obviously just not true. But just need to look at the facts. Swedes always score against Scottish teams in European finals. Celtic get a Swede in. They get the kind of guy in who scores. That's what I'm saying. But it's back to Karl Hansen, the shoemaker, and I thought for years that he was the first foreign guy to sign from out with. Properly for him from out with the British Isles guy to sign for Rangers, but it turns out it was Karl Picarna, this Austrian goalkeeper who's 20 years before that, 1904, 1905, only made 1 first team appearance for Rangers in the kind of minor competition. Was it the Glasgow League or something like that? I think he played. He was a goalkeeper, but I think he played in, was it Queen's Park or something at Hampden in front of 2 people. But he made a first team appearance. He was, strictly speaking, and it's like an Austrian. Okay, right, so that's ruined the whole thing. But has it? How did we find out about Karl Picarna back in the day? Way back there, back in the realms of time. Well, we were doing one of our tours, weren't we? But this one was middle of Europe, the Mitropa Cup countries. I think we're in Vienna. And we're playing First Vienna. You've already gone too long. There's too much to cover on this podcast. You don't want to tell them the metro. But First Vienna, through lockdown, I had this fantasy that I was going to, I started getting more and more anxious about not getting to football matches, not getting to live games. And I've been in Hovart, First Vienna Stadium, Hovart, which is the kind of New Cathkin Park of Austrian football, of Vienna, except for the fact that there's actually First Vienna are still playing there. It's up in the Heiligenstadt, up in the Danube Valley. You get off the subway and you look up, you can see the big floodlights, and you just know what it's going to be. And I go inside, and it's just a big, massive. But it's the first. It used to be the old National Stadium before the Prater, which is now called the Ernst Happel, who was the manager of Feyenoord when the Swedish guy scored against Celtic in the European Cup final. The Ernst Happel Stadium, before it took over, it was originally called the Prater Stadium. Before it took over as a national stadium, they had the internationals in there, and before we had European club competition as we currently know it, properly pan-European. One of the instigators of that was the Mitropa Cup and this whole Middle European kind of coffee shop football type thing, almost pseudo-intellectual with the Viennese, and the Viennese were like the Austrians were seen as being like the Scots, the passing game, the Scottish school of football, whereas England and Germany, they played a similar style, more kind of rugby, basically, back in the day. We were intellectuals, great passers of the ball, playing entertaining football that dominated in the early days. And it was the first international played in mainland Europe. It was played in Hobart, which you can still go to. It's a great stadium. And I'm going to go and see First Vienna. I've been to Hobart, but that was just, there wasn't a game on. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go and see First Vienna. Hasn't happened. But Rangers were playing First Vienna in this tournament, to which Bold Club, famous Danish team Bold Club, were invited along. I think we beat Bold Club 9-0 in this tournament. I don't know if we played it at Hobart. We certainly would have played First Vienna at Hobart. Rangers have played in this place. We played in the Stadio Nacional in Lisbon before Celtic did. We played in the 40s. And the Cortes, the Tigers, we beat Benfica 3-0 exhibition game. And it was the Tigers. We were the Tigers at Lisbon before there was the Lions at Lisbon. So we played in Hobart and we played Bold Club. I think we beat them 9-0. But it was such a terrible day. Weather-wise, it was really raining, and that's what happened. That's why Hobart ended up becoming, because it's built into a natural bowl in the Baron Rothschild's estate. It's a natural bowl, and it's very grassy, massive banking in one side, which makes it such a dramatic, amazing stadium. And that started slipping, and there was like 70,000 there to see. I don't know if we're playing Austria against Hungary or against Italy was the actual game where things started sliding, but it's the site of the first international played in continental Europe, so they moved to this. The 1970 European Cup Winners' Cup final, Manchester City against Gornik Zabrze, was played in the Prater, now known as the Ernst Happel Stadium in Vienna, the new national stadium, and it was in 1930 odds. But there was only 7,000 there, because it didn't have the roof on it yet, and it was peeing it down, and there was only 7,000 turned up for a European final. It's just rain, it's not just a thing. In Glasgow, it hits Vienna as well. And we played the Ball Club, so they come back. It was like, that's no fair. The punters all went home because it was so wet and what have you. Let's have the game again. We'll play them again. But I don't know if he was embarrassed. He was faking injury because he'd had 9 pit past him. But the Ball Club of Denmark, their goalkeeper, he wasn't available. They were missing a goalkeeper. So they borrowed the goalkeeper from First Vienna, Karel Pikarna. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's the spirit of Karel Pikarna was trying to tell me, Alec, I'm the first foreigner to play for Rangers. All through lockdown, he was communicating to me from beyond the grave to say, you've got to go back. A First Vienna player has played for Rangers, signed for Rangers from First Vienna. It's okay. You don't need to go to Hobart. You don't need to go back. You've paid your dues. But he went and we brought him over as a goalkeeper. But the thing is, we saw him, we played against him. We replayed that game. We only beat them 5-3 this time, so already a four goal turnaround, and we're watching, the Rangers management are watching, going, hey, he's quite useful. Get him over as a reserve goalkeeper. That actually became Austria's first ever, but got him because he was playing, he was guesting for a Danish club. Just going to say, it's just great to see. I'm quite excited about the fact we've got a Danish guy in the door before we played against Aberdeen on Sunday, and now we're looking at possibly having ANDREAS, SKOV, OLSEN signing us. How you doing, folks? This is your fat egg. We counted all 7 of them out, and we counted 6 of them back in. 18 points from 21 in that 7-game run of SPFL Premiership matches. We got Celtic and Aberdeen at what's probably going to be the lowest ebbs of the season. That's fair enough, but we also got the 2 of them at their grounds. We also got the 2 of them away from home. We got the 2 of them on their own patch in the space of 8 days, and we beat both of them in between times. A game at Ibrox against Aberdeen as well, the club who, the 2 hardest, historically, away grounds for Rangers in Scottish football. We won at the 2 of them, won at both of them. Just to package up a run of 5 games, we dropped 3 points at Tynecastle in the run of 7 league games. But I think if you'd drawn at Parkhead after losing at Tynecastle, or even if you'd drawn at Tynecastle and drawn at Parkhead, you'd still be saying, that's great, that's actually pretty good, that's a really good run for Rangers there through the... But you'd have dropped more points. You'd have dropped 4 points as opposed to the 3 that we dropped. It's a phenomenal run, and I think we should just be able to chill out and enjoy it, but we can't because of all these mad signings that we're bringing in. We're starting to look like a proper force again. Andrew Kavanagh putting his and Parag Marathi's money where the 49ers' mouth is. Aberdeen at Pittodrie debrief, and Annan Athletic in the Scottish Cup preview pod coming to you in association with GersNet. Check out GersNet every Friday 9 PM, every Sunday 9:30 PM live on the GersNet YouTube channel. I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by Newell's Old Boys. Newell's Old Boys. Newell's Old Boys is a school in Argentina that formed Newell's Old Boys. This is Lionel Messi's team, isn't it? When he was a very young boy, before Barcelona bought him and injected him with plasticine and that to make him the completely, the completely organic La Masia produced player. That's the mysticism of La Masia. Barcelona producing their own players, all Catalonian separatists to their core, except the ones that they got for Argentina or Zlatan Ibrahimovic and other various guys that they had like 200,000 euro buyout clauses in their contracts. But they got Lionel Messi from Newell's Old Boys, Rosario Central. Newell's Old Boys, a great derby in Argentina, one of the great derbies in Newell's. Newell was the guy that had the school, wasn't it? Their colours at Kilmarnock this season are playing a bit of a Newell's Old Boys. The one of their away kits is it red and black? I think maybe dark blue, but red and black's a Newell's Old Boys classic kit. And it's private schoolboys. Private schoolboys shouldn't be allowed in Scottish football. They should. I'm talking about not actual schoolboys. I mean ex-private school, but that's why they call them old boys, don't they? They're keen on the fact that even when they're older than me, they're talking about how the fact they're a schoolboy, they're a private school from this particular school, from Newell's Old Boys. We're the old boys from that school. You're in your 60s, mate. But I'm still a Newell's old boy. They're allowed in the boardroom. We need them in the boardroom. That's needs must. They do. They're very good at making money. But I don't want them involved in fit because I've got pals. It's okay. I can slag them. I've got plenty of really good pals who are ex-private school boys. They don't clip that up. I like hangs about with schoolboys. They're older than me. Some of them are just in their 40s and stuff. And that's the young ones. The youngest schoolboy, private schoolboy that I know is in his 40s. In fact, no, he's in his 50s now. No, but they're good. They're nice guys. They're all bastards, but they're evil. But it's okay because we're raised to know that slagging is the way to go. Getting slagged, getting abused, people being really aggressive to you for no good reason. If they realise that that's actually no very nice, well then why did mum and dad send them to that boarding school, and why did they take all the kind of hard times that they endured at that private school and they constantly do from their mates at the cricket club and at the golf and at the rugby union? Why are they still taking all that? But it's not just banter, it's actually horrible. They don't, because the whole belief system will crash if they find out that it's no. So they can slag the private school, they don't care. They're actually happy and give them the attention. And they all deserve it because they've all been more horrible to me than I could ever be to them. And a lot of them are really nice to me as well. I have to admit, a lot of really nice guys who went to private school as well. I do know a lot of really nice guys who went to private school and have done really nice things for me. But one of the most hurtful things was, I'm in Platform 3 in Linlithgow, the pub that's next to the train station at Platform 3 that's got to be train inside it. I think it's Alloa Breweries, I've not been for a while, but when we were going downhill, they never get stabbed, they never get slashed, they never get glassed, they're really aggressive. And really horrible to you because they think it's like the rugby and all that, but it's not like that. It's different. It's actually, you've got all this stuff to fall back on. You've got the old school tie. You've got, I say the golf and the socialising, all the black tie do's and that kind of stuff. Or this network that you've got behind you to catch you. But I think what it is when they say horrible stuff to you in the football, you're just thinking about their privilege, but you're also seeing it's a kind of naivety. But it's why they get away with it. But I think you don't really understand what you're actually saying here. How horrible it is, how disrespectful it is. And my good mate of mine, and he was he's like Dunfermline supporter, so we'd meet up, we'd go to Scotland games and that, we'd work together, because they all try to commodify stuff. The private school boys all like to commodify. How can I make money out of this? I've got to go and see mummy and daddy at the weekend. I need to be telling them that it's not just that I'm into football, like a ruffian sport. I need to be making something out of this, a podcast, a blog, something. And I was always involved in shit like that, so met a lot of really nice boys. A lot of them, they're older adults, and It's a Dunfermline fan. I'm sitting there as a St Johnstone fan, there's a Hearts fan sitting at the table having a few pints. It's one of the places we'd meet up. Great booze on that, really nice. And it was around about the time, 2012. Things were happening off the field with Rangers. Things were changing, and I'd always, that thing. You're a big team fan. You're a Rangers fan, so obviously you're just a glory hunter. You're a moron. I think that's probably why I ended up hanging about with these fuckers, to try and prove, no, I don't made it fit with the new, and I made it into fit with the new, and I would never ever slag. Dunfermline really conscious of this thing, so I'd never slag clubs that were seen as being smaller than Rangers in Scotland. Don't like to punch down towards the fit with things, but socially it'd be punching up, so it's confusing. It's a confusing vibe. So I wouldn't have slagged if we'd pumped Dunfermline 7-2 in the League Cup or something like that. He'd have to ask me about it. He'd have to ask me. I wouldn't mention it. I wouldn't mention these things. And when Dunfermline get into a lot of clubs around about that time, getting into big financial trouble, I was genuinely worried. So I had a general love for the whole Scottish game. Really famous club Dunfermline, won the Scottish Cup 61, 68, got to the semi-final 69 Cup Winners' Cup and stuff like that. Really historic club. And I was really wanting the best for them, genuinely concerned and stuff like that. So he says to us, we're sitting in the booth having a wee pint, and he says to me, I don't think Rangers should have to go into the lower leagues. So, thanks very much. I think not, because apart from anything else, doesn't make sense financially. You got a club that's got 45,000 season ticket holders, to get rid of them. It doesn't make sense for the SPF, the SPLs it was then, to be getting rid of them, to be losing them for a few years. So that's right. It says, as long as you change your name. What? So you can't compete as Rangers, because you're not the same club. Oh, here we fucking go. And he was like, well, I think if you come back as like Govan Wanderers or Ibrox Athletic or something like that, I think that'd be acceptable, And I'm like, oh, fucking prick. And he's looking round to the table now to see, have I got under his skin? I think I'm about to go under your skin with the ragged end of this this pint glass. But I don't just think these things, but you're not going to do that, obviously. You're not going to do something like that. But I just remember thinking, hey, fuck you. And that was one of the moments you thought, you don't really understand what you're doing here. Because big Chelsea fan. Because they all, they're the fans of the wee clubs, these old firm glory hunters, you don't understand football, but, I've got a season ticket for Old Trafford. I haven't missed an Arsenal away game for 48 years, but they all seem to have a big team down south. They can just put it off, don't they? Put it to the side so you don't notice it. The side agreements and things like that. But that's absolutely garbage. But I was thinking about that the other day when I was thinking we should be. Who's the new director of football? We've not got a new director of football yet. He's been there all along. It's Mo Diamandi. Nordsjælland, old boy, Nordsjælland of Denmark. SKOV OLSEN. He played for Nordsjælland. That's where he kind of starts. Diamandi arrived there, from via Ghana, from the Ivory Coast, but that's where he kind of grew up in the football school at CHUKWUANI. He's Nordsjælland. You saw the footage of CHUKWUANI Rangers TV when he's turning up at Auchenhowie. There's Oliver Antman. Ante. Which I think of Ante Niemi as well, the whole Finnish thing. But they'd played together at Nordsjælland. He was at, Oliver Antman was at Nordsjælland as well. And that's what I'm thinking, if we're going to change our name, maybe we should just change it to Nordsjælland Old Boys. Just like Newell's Old Boys. Maradona played for Newell's Old Boys. It's good. It's a good. That's right. I feel as if that's probably what happened with Lionel Messi. He'd probably get misquoted, or somebody's. But I think a journalist might have put the words in his mouth after that game at Ibrox where they held him to a 0-0 and he said the thing about anti-football. I know I go on about this all the time, but it's a phrase. Newell's Old Boys back in the late 60s, early 70s were seen as being one of the clubs that were more progressive in their style of football, more honest football, just trying to win through entertaining football, which was the opposite of what Estudiantes de La Plata and Racing Club were doing at that point in time. That was embarrassing. The Intercontinental Cup, basically the forerunner of the Club World Championship, and they were playing the champions of Europe, and that kind of playoff game. It was just all ending in massive brawls. They were evil. They were keeping darning needles in the fold of their socks. They stick in opposition players. It was horrible, the stuff they were getting up to. The Rangers were just a bit defensive that night against Barcelona, so to call us anti-football, it actually makes it worse. But he agreed with that because he knows what a horrible thing anti-football actually means in Argentina. But that's the Newell's Old Boys were supposed to be against us. So it'd be nice to be like Nordsjælland's Old Boys, of course. Nordsjælland staunch as anything because they played They played against. I mean, the manager were playing against Annan, rivals down that way of Queen of the South. Their manager just now, Wally Gibson, he's player manager, but he used to be player manager of Queen of the South. He's from Dumfries, but Queen of the South go into Europe via losing to Rangers in the 2008 Scottish Cup final. Sitting there, everyone that day, but because we'd just come off a European final. And we play them about 10 days later or something in the Scottish Cup final, beat them after extra time. And then that pits them in the old Cup Winners' Cup route. They go into the UEFA Cup and they come up against Nordsjælland for Denmark. But because Palmerston, one of the most beautiful grounds in the world, is kind of a lot of terracing still there, they have to move the game, UEFA, you have to move the game to an All-Seater Stadium. So they go to Schreiber Excelsior. Airdrie, you know what Airdrie's like. I mean, Rangers fans get a bit, we blush when we hear some of the stuff that Airdrie fans come at me, mate, that's a bit anti-Catholic. I mean, that's a bit sectarian, actually. I find that a bit distasteful. So Nordsjælland have been to the staunchest town in Larkhall, Airdrie. I think it's kind of CHUKWUANI, and it's really, it's tight, but one of the staunchest towns in Scotland, and they've taken on Queen of the South in their pseudo Rangers kit. They're totally staunch, so we should be, maybe if we're going to change our name, it should be Nordsjælland and Old Boys. The problem with Newell's Old Boys is, the initials. Their badge is just the initials. Newell's Old Boys, and as an unreconstructed British male, I do titter a bit at that every time I see it. So what we need to do, we kind of that kind of embarrassment. So I think in honour of the fact that Charles III is now the reigning monarch, maybe taking a timestamp it historically when Rangers became Nordsjælland and Old Boys. We should do a testament, a wee tribute to the new reigning monarch, and we should make ourselves Kings Nordsjælland Old Boys. Just put that in front of us, and that would solve any problems. My name's Alec Anderson. Can I be the one to be embodied? Be embodied well. Anywho, be embodied well. Anywho, like Sirocco or Petrichor, all I want is to be beautiful, like balustrade or parasol. Work me into something beautiful. I zip into my platforms. I slide into my skirts. Pull the straps around my shoulders. Pull the rouge out of my purse. Can I be the one to be embodied? Be embodied well. Anywho, I'm making out that I had to actually read that off. Something like I don't know the lyrics off by heart. That's how I'm feeling right now. My name's Alec Anderson. This is the Fat Egg Pod, the pod that kind of hits thinking it's Stereo Lab doing French disco on the word, but you hear it more like Val Doonican doing Elusive Butterfly on Pebble Mill at 1. My name is Alec. 2 bags of decaf, Tetley's in the pot. I don't care. Anderson, and I'm here to talk to you about so much that I really shouldn't have done so many digressions at the beginning of the pod because there's too much to cover. I mostly want to just talk about the relief. I was initially want to talk about the relief, the calm down, just the tension. We didn't really get our Christmas, didn't really get our New Year, did we? As Rangers supporters, we had to win every game, and there was so many games through that. And it's now that Christmas and New Year's done, we're kind of feeling holiday mode. No disrespect to Annan, and certainly no disrespect to Ludogorets Razgrad, who were playing next Thursday night, and a change as good as the rest. The different competitions, just we're away for this. Have to win this game. Have to. If we want to get back into league title challenge, have to win this game. Have to win this game. And we just kept winning them. These 7 straight league games, and I feel as if you don't get a chance to enjoy stuff. We're now getting worked up, though, aren't we? Because of the signings we're making, because of these players that are arriving, and I just want to chill. I mean, the relief can take a breath. It's a weight off the shoulders. And we never really get a chance to breathe. Sky Sports News. I know I'm just talking generalities here. We'll get into details. But Sky Sports News started this with me. I realised that a few years ago that when you first started watching Sky Sports News all the time, and as they're building up, it's all Man United and Arsenal are going head to head. They're fighting out for the league. Oh my God! And they're giving you all the updates, all the player injuries and who's playing next, and interviewing folk. It's going epic. This is epic. This is massive. Whoever slips up here, the other team's going to win the league, and they hate each other. And so they do. And then it gets the final day of the season, and one of them wins the league. This is absolutely epic. And it's like, who are you going to sign next? What are you going to sign for next season? What's going to happen the next day? It's just it's what's going to happen, what's going to happen. It's like, just like 2 or 3 days of this thing you built up for like 10 months every single day, whipping us on to a frenzy. Just for a few days of going, oh my God, what was that all about? And they'll constantly replay the goals and post-match interviews and stuff like that, and they'll show you the open-top bus parades and things like that. But it's just who you say. Steven Gerrard plays in arguably the greatest European Cup, certainly the greatest Champions League final of all time. Certainly the greatest one, not for the neutral. Played in colour. 3-goal comeback. 3 goals down to Milan at half-time in Istanbul. You might have heard about this. And they scored 3 goals. Steven Gerrard was quite involved in it. They scored 3 goals in the opening of the second half, and it goes to penalties and they win. It's absolutely phenomenal. The first question he's getting asked at the end of the game, so you're not going to go to Chelsea then, Steve? You're going to sign an extension to your contract? You're going to stay at Liverpool? I said, fuck it. Can we just talk about what's happened? What's the whole point of contract extensions? What's the whole point of who's going to win? It's to find out who wins the trophies. It's to have great moments on the pitch. This is one of them. Does it actually get much better than that? It makes me wonder what's going to happen. England, I grew up, England couldn't get to another major final. They'd won the World Cup by playing all their games in one stadium. The only hosts even ever to do that, but they'd never been to a major final before or since. And this is just before I was born, they won the World Cup, so I'd been hearing about it up until I was like 50. They still hadn't got to another major final, yet they'd be talking about themselves as being favourites for so many of them into these tournaments. And I was actually getting to the point where I was already feeling really sorry for England managers and players because of the treatment they were getting with their idiot media. But then I was starting to actually feel sorry for the tournament. It kind of cheapens the World Cup. FIFA do everything they can to cheapen it by handing it out to all these dictatorships all the time. But it's really cheapening the World Cup by having this team that just won the final in their only ever appearance in the final. It makes it seem like a one-off. You start to think, is this competition really telling us who's the best on the planet? So when England actually get to the final of the Euros, albeit it's at Wembley again, that's within the next final, the final of the Euros, the next one, they get to the final Euro 2024 in Berlin as well, just to prove, no, it's no a one-off. We're back. England are back. They're a big-time team. We were always a big-time nation, not just the inventors of the game. It's the English. The English aren't even bothered because they lost both those finals. Gareth Southgate, complete waste of time. Complete. No other England manager has ever got you to the final of a major tournament. 2 successive finals of a major tournament. But no, it's just like, I mean, don't want to go too far the other way. I mean, Inter, when we played Inter in the Champions League 2005, 2006, it was hysteria. We played them at Ibrox, and if we, the results went the way that night, it was the last game of that group stage, we would go through. We would qualify for the first time ever from a Champions League group stage. Only us could finish second. The very first Champions League group stage, the one time that finishing second didn't get you anywhere because it was 2 quarter-final group stages, so only the top team went through because that top team was going straight into the final. But it became this is why Dick Advocate's getting all this money, David Murray's spending all this money. It's the Champions League. Winning the league's not enough, you go to take the Champions League. This was the hysteria all round us all the time, and I was into it. I wanted us to win the Champions League. Celtic have won the European Cup, we haven't. Like, just do this. But it got to the stage it became, we can't even go out the group. Going to Bayern in the last day of the group, hitting the woodwork and all that, and what's his name? Oliver Kahn coming out and doing the dirty on Michael Moles and things. I just couldn't get the win. It was horrific. There was other campaigns where we couldn't get off the bottom of the table. It's ever going to get this. We're Inter already through. The games, how dramatic do you want it to be? It was like the dream scenario of what would happen the night Rangers finally overcame this seemingly insurmountable yet pivotal obstacle of getting out the group stage of the Champions League. Inter, the game's finished. We draw 1 each. They're already through. The draw suits them. It suits us as long as the other game, Porto against Artmedia in Bratislava. I'd been to the only game I hadn't been to in that group stage was Inter in the San Siro because the San Siro was shut. They were getting punished, Inter, for crowd trouble. But I'd been to Artmedia for the draw. I'd been to Bratislava, so I know such places as Artmedia. I'd been to the Tehelnipol for the draw with the old Petr Zalka, now known as Artmedia, or then known as Artmedia. I'd been to Porto for the 1 each draw over there. And I've been to all the games at Ibrox, and here it was. This is us. This is in the cusp of it. But their game had kicked off a bit later. They're playing injury time. So all the players are out in the park at the end of our game. You remember it. The Inter fans are staying behind. It was great. The Inter fans were all, exchanging gifts. I don't mean that sarcastically in Andy Cameron sort of way. It was just, it was great. Inter fans were right into it. They were hoping we get the result as well. And You had to wait and wait. Turns out that the ball was getting cleared off the line and stuff, or the ball was sticking in the mud. It was going to roll over the line for a goal. I don't know who it was. We didn't want to win, but I think we needed a draw in Bratislava. We couldn't see them. Having to wait, and it eventually comes through. It's a draw. It's a draw in Bratislava. We're through, and the players are all way, and the crowds are way. Right, everybody went home. Everybody went home. There wasn't even a lap of honour for the players, and I'm standing there going, "Is that it? Yeah, that's fantastic. Anyway, right, bye." There was no, I don't know, I was expecting fireworks and everybody's on the park, at least a lap of honour for the players, but it was just like, that thing. Moving on. You can go too far the other way. George Best, 1968, Manchester United won the European Cup. He's the young man. He said you could sense that this was the end of the road as far as, because, Munich, guys died in the air crash in that tournament, playing in the European Cup. So Mark Busby felt duty bound. They'll have to win the European Cup. And Bill Foulkes and Bobby Charlton had been in that air crash, and so it was a big, massive thing for Man U. But they felt that was it, job done. And they didn't look forward. They weren't feeling the ambition to win it again, to retain it and stuff like that. And within 6 years, 7 years, they're relegated. They get relegated to the top flight in England. You've got to keep moving forward, or else you're going to start going back. But you need a chance. It's for your own health. You've got to breathe the fresh air that you've earned to reboot yourself so you can go again. Dundee at Ibrox. Our next league game in just over a week's time. We should be able to enjoy this, relax. And I feel as a support, because we're going to have to get right behind it. It's going to be tension all the way, as the manager himself was saying. He can see it going down to the last day of the season, the league title race. So we should take this chance to enjoy my snagging items from the last my Welsh accent. There's a big Asian community in Glasgow. And they've been having a bit of kind of internecine war for the last few days, trying to work out which one of them I'm offending most by the accent I was putting on in my post-match reaction pod. It was supposed to be my Welsh accent. I was supposed to be impersonating a Welsh guy who does a podcast about how much he drinks in a day, but it didn't. It wasn't a good Welsh accent. I was also talking about us having 3 players seemingly forever locked on 4 goals each. As our top league scorer, like Emi Fernandez, when he scores that goal that's disallowed, that he's one of the guys who's on 4 goals. That's our top scorer in that game at Pittodrie. Top league scorer, 3 different players locked on 4 goals. Fernandez scores that goal to pit 1 to 5, gets disallowed for dodgy reasons. We'll talk about that later. Then Yusuf Chermiti, he gets pit through on goal. He gets played through on goal. So all these new flash signings we've got, I'm just forgetting the old players straight away. I'm such a tart. I'm forgetting their names straight away. Chermiti gets played through on goal. I think Mikey Moore pits him through on goal. Wasn't an open goal, but it's a really, really good chance for a guy who wants to be an £8 million striker. Saved by the goalkeeper, because he's one of the other guys on 4 goals. He's one of the other guys that's stuck on 4 goals. He's not getting. So by the time Tav, who was the last player, as far as I was concerned, who was on 4 league goals for Rangers, steps up to take the penalty, I'm thinking, this is the day nobody gets to 5. You should have been taking this, Tav. He thinks it's not going to happen. He slots that away, no bother. But I'd also forgotten from them, even before Fernandez had his goal disallowed, Tello Hasgard was on 4 goals. He just scored his 4th goal for Rangers. 4 goals. We've now got 4 players on 4 goals or more in the league, like the manager was referring to a few weeks ago when somebody asked him, are you getting a number 9 in? You got to get a centre forward in. But it's about scoring goals in different areas. Now we've got this set piece thing going. Now we've got this whole scoring goals for set pieces. All 4 goals against Aberdeen scored for set pieces. A penalty is a set piece, isn't it? It's the settest of pieces, a penalty. All 4 goals scored for set pieces against Aberdeen. That's a major thing. That's actually, if you've got 10 players on 10 goals each, that's better than having 2 30-goal-a-season strikers. Think about it. But also, I think if you get a really good striker who's been particularly lethal, well, that has a defence, on its back feet. It has a defence primed and ready to go, that they're worried about him. Okay, but if we're brilliant for set pieces, that the one that Fernandez scores that got disallowed, which even Aberdeen only protesting because they were convinced it was a goal. Tav hits that for the halfway line. He knocks that that free kick in from the halfway line with his right foot on the left-hand side of the park, out in the wing. It's anybody can score for Rangers for set pieces. They're coming from everywhere. You saw Aberdeen players running into each other at Rangers set pieces. I know Aberdeen having a bad season, but it's causing absolute fear everywhere. I think it puts more pressure on defence if we're spreading the goals about. The relief just to bask in it. I know. Graham Shinnie must have seen some weather in his whole time playing for Aberdeen. Seen a lot of bad weather, kind of wild weather, playing at Pittodrie at the best of times. But in the last fortnight or so, the snow and that up there, he must have thought he'd seen it all, Graham Shinnie, particularly in Pittodrie itself, until he saw this kind of half... The kit's kind of half black with a kind of half grey bit on it as well on the top, and there's kind of powder blue on it. This kind of powder blue, grey, black blizzards, kind of cyclone, kind of storm, kind of a will-o'-the-wisp, just showing him the ball, and then disappearing it faster than any snowstorm has ever disappeared his car on his driveway, wherever it is he stays in the Aberdeen area, and he's just blind. Where has it gone? Where was it gone? He's on his right wing. He's out in the right wing, and then it's away. You can see the ball, and then it's gone. And it's slicing, dicing, coquettishly enticing Nicky Devlin to come in there and try and help out his mate, and the ball gets put through his leg with the same cyclone, the same will-o'-the-wisp, the same JD Gassama absolutely ripping Aberdeen to pieces, and Graham Shinnie just he has to hack him down a penalty the same way. He get his shovel out to try and get the snow off the tap of his motor. Well, we're fantastic. So the best result against Aberdeen back-to-back since 2017-18 is the last time we beat them in back-to-back league games when McInnes was supposed to be becoming the Rangers manager, but Graham Murty was the manager, beat them at home midweek, and then beat them at Aberdeen, beat them at Pittodrie in the Sunday. We had them in back-to-back games, I said before, 2022 to 2023 season under Michael Beale. We lost at Pittodrie, but we lost that Scottish Cup semi-final to Celtic as well. Happy days. In between times before a Todd Cantwell goal to nil beat Aberdeen, but we played them in back-to-back league games that season as well. But it was great. It was just really fantastic to see. Danny Röhl knew exactly how long it had been since we won there. He was quoting the fact that this was our first win there in 5 or something. And he knew exactly what kind of reception he was going to get as well. He's on it, and his players are on it as well. Gassama, been forced to play in the right wing, but he goes out to the left for a wee goal at his home patch, on the pitch, tactically, and absolutely tore Aberdeen to pieces to win that penalty that won the game. Jim Gillespie is arriving, and other news. It's not all about Danish players that are arriving. We'll talk about them, but Jim Gillespie arrives as our new CEO from St Mirren. The statement from Rangers was Kavanagh, Marathi, and Jim Gillespie themselves were quoted in the statement, and we had delivery and delivered. We had strategy and strategic. Key stakeholders that was mentioned. Alignment was mentioned twice, and also sustainable was in there as well. So all the proper wanky kind of business speak is in there. So he's up to speed. The guy that should have replaced Bisgrove, who was just an absolute ace at that kind of stuff. I mean, Bisgrove, best in show, was it? No, it was horrendous, the business jargon, but that's what you need. You need private schoolboys as well, and the guys that can make the money. And Jim Gillespie, what a job he's overseen at St Mirren. He's been there when the 3 top 6 finishes, qualifying for Europe, and winning only the club's 5th major honour in their entire history. So what a job he's done there. Fraser Thornton's going to stay as kind of interim CEO for a wee while, and then he'll remain as an executive director to kind of help out Jim Gillespie. He's not arriving just yet. Kibble, I didn't realise this. I think Kibble is firm. This is where he's made his name. This is where he's really proved himself, cut his teeth or whatever. Jim Gillespie is firm. It's Kibble, and it's to do with socially disadvantaged children. It's like a charity thing as well. But it's £20 million it was making. Then he takes over, and it's up to making £50 million. So he's got them working in sweatshops, obviously. He's exploiting disadvantaged children. That's the kind of bastard we need in the boardroom. Sorry, my morals go out the window when it comes to making money for Rangers. That's fine. He obviously knows what he's doing. Kevin Thelwell might feel that, Danny Röhl mentioned Kevin Thelwell, and he's the guy that brought in Scott Fry in his post-match presser at Aberdeen to thank him for bringing in Scott Fry, their set-piece coach. But Mikey Moore's now a player. Thelwell Asgard, that's him on 4 goals now. He's another guy that's playing better, as Danny Röhl was saying. The big Chermiti, he's a hero now because he's 2 goals at Parkhead, and you had Scott Fry in there as well. Kevin Thelwell's involved in this. Maybe he's going to put himself forward for sporting director if that role's not been filled yet. ANDREAS SKOV OLSEN. I thought it was Scott Wilson I thought it's got, because I don't really listen to the Rangers review. I know I'm slagging a lot of folk. It's because I'm just a wee meaningless, knob, just doing my wee podcast from my house. I don't get paid. It just pisses me off that folk are getting paid to go and watch Rangers and folk still think it's an actual Rangers podcast. It is a podcast all about Rangers, but it's a news organisation. It's the Herald. They'll get in somebody off a podcast to be what the Americans would call a colour commentator, but in this case, the colour is somebody who just psychotically loves Rangers the same way I do, and I don't doubt that all the guys that do the Rangers review do love Rangers, but they're on a rota. They're getting paid. They're in. I mean, for me, it's accreditation. No representation. As far as the minute you go into the media room, the minute you're in the press room, the minute you're up in the gantry, you've got access. You've got accreditation to go in there as a journalist, and you're a journalist. You're not a supporter anymore. And I love that. I watch Rangers review every day. I watch it religiously, and they're fantastic journalists. But am I just jealous that I've never been asked on? No, it's not doing it. It's not doing it at all. Bastards. But I just, they get you a bit. They've got to get likes. They've got to get views. No, that mines don't count. I don't. That's the fact that I'm trying to do the same. That's different. I'm paying to get into Rangers. I have to pay to go and watch Rangers. And it doesn't matter if they go and watch them in Europe in their holidays or whatever, on their days off. Whatever. But so they've got to produce, subscribers. They've got to produce numbers. So they're inclined to, kind of hype up the transfer part. So that's why the transfer window always gets me a bit. Folk themselves worked up about who they want to sign and who could sign, and you get right invested in it, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, oh, Christ, why did I even bother? It was fun. It was I can't remember who the other guy was, but one of them was Lawrence Shankland, as always, and there was another striker that were rumoured to be gone for. There was no official indication that we'd, even inquired about either of these strikers. But Rangers fans were fawning out online about who was the best between these two strikers that we'd never shown an interest in, that we were never going to sign, and that haven't signed so far. This is crazy. And Rangers review, they're obviously doing that thing where they're trying to hype you up. I mean, Danny Röhl, he was at Bayern. I mean, he spoke to Harry Kane. He will probably know. He'll have contacts there. Let us know what you think in the comments. Would you like to see Harry Kane coming to Ibrox? I've seen Harry Kane. Well, I wasn't at the game when he played Spurs, but he's been at Ibrox for a friendly. But I don't like to get involved, so I'm not really paying attention. Sometimes I switch off the transfer rumour stuff on the Rangers review. I'm usually in the shower and I get a bit of water in my ear and all that. I've got problems with ears already. But I just kept hearing Scott Wilson. I'm thinking, is this Scott Wilson that used to play for us? It seems like yesterday Scott Wilson was playing for us, but obviously he's like late 40s now. Scott Wilson, centre half, went to Dunfermline. Better part of his career at Dunfermline, but he's at the age now where his boy could be playing for somebody in Scotland, Dundee or Motherwell or something. When we get an interest in him, and I thought it was Andy Scott. They're saying Andy Scott Wilson. I mean, it's to differentiate himself from his dad. You get all the kind of hyphenated surnames now for playing with the hyphenated Christian names now as well. Andy Scott Wilson. There's Andreas SKOV Olsen. Andreas SKOV Olsen, are you fucking kidding? Then I was interested. Once the water came out my ears, I realised, and we're signing this guy, and it's probably falling through as I speak to you just now. By the time I get this uploaded, it'll be Tuesday. But by the time this is uploaded, it's either fallen through or it's been signed, sealed and delivered. He's basically having a medical at Auchenhowie, or as I like to call it, Kinhowie. Have you got an injury? No, well, don't worry, we'll get you one, son. We'll get you one as soon as possible. I mean, two ROMMENS. It's the only Rangers can announce a signing by telling you he's going to be out for 10 to 14 days. But no, Scott Wilson is doing the medical there. The term's been agreed between the clubs. Wolfsburg, why are we buying somebody for Wolfsburg? The 14th in the Bundesliga. I mean, we shit all over Bundesliga clubs. Beat Borussia Dortmund in the UEFA Cup, the Europa League as it was known then. We beat RB Leipzig in the semi-final. We only lost on penalties to Eintracht Frankfurt. We lost in penalties to Eintracht Frankfurt in the final. And they'd chickened out the whole season. That's no the. You think what's his name? Oliver Glasman, the guy at the weekend, the Crystal Palace getting beat by Macclesfield. I think Eintracht get beat by a third division team in the German Cup that season as well. At the very first round, so they could chicken out of that and just concentrate. Or I think they won 2 Bundesliga games after Christmas, just so they could concentrate in Europe. They knew they were going to be mid-table in the Bundesliga. They chickened it, but that's the we kind of shat all over them. Really, it was only one knackeredness that stopped us beating 3 Bundesliga clubs that season, that European one, and now we're one. It's 14th. They're 14th. They could beat 8-1 at the weekend. Did you see Harry Kane, by the way? Did you see Harry Kane? I mean, this was at 16 goals in 20 Bundesliga games. His assists are even better. The guy is like more of a machine than Bayern Munich, the most machine-like of all German clubs, the land of machine-like football teams, as we like to kind of negatively, as a positive stereotype. I think it's negative. But yeah, it's what. Maybe, I mean, we've got contacts here. He did used to work there, but maybe he could have a word and try and get Harry Kane. But they could beat 8-1 off Wolfsburg, and Wolfsburg could beat 8-1 off Bayern Munich at the weekend there, and they can't even get in the team. He's not even in the squad. Andy Scott Wilson, ANDREAS SKOV Wilson, the latest Nordsjælland graduate to turn up at Rangers. They're 14th for the Bundesliga, you know what I mean, just after relegation spots. I don't know, it's kind of Wolfsburg, you know, that Wolfgang Wolf and Wout Wouters used to play for them as Wolfsburg, to take the attention away from the fact that that's where it was a city built by the Nazis, you know. It's the Volkswagen city, Wolfsburg. The Volkswagen beat the Kubelwagen. The Volkswagen beat Herbie the Love Bug. You know, you watching Love Bug. Did Love Bug tell you that his mum and dad were made by slave labour during the Second World War? No, didn't mention that, did they? So I don't know. But Wolfsburg, the one good thing about Wolfsburg is that's where we got Václav Černý from. Václav Černý, and I found out today SKOV Olsen, a right winger. And he favours his left foot. It's exactly the Černý parallels are. Václav Černý, we got on loan from Wolfsburg, option to buy. Did we have an option to buy on Černý? There was no real option anyway. Didn't have that kind of money that they were needing. Last season, I said Václav Černý was my player of the year. My player of the season last season was Václav Černý. Igaman and Nico Raskin could be better on their day, more spectacular. But the guy just turned every week. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, Václav Černý. When he went through on goal, he scored. When he went down the wing, he hit somebody. He found a Rangers player with his pullback, with his cross, whatever. Just quality, quiet, efficient, quality Václav Černý all the time. And I think that we're trying to get the same thing from Olsen, right wing. So we've got Mikey Moore is on the left just now. We think Gassama should be a left wing. We think he's better than the left wing. He demonstrated that by winning the penalty on Sunday at Pittodrie. But Mikey Moore's no staying. Mikey Moore's absolute quality. He's dynamite. He's going back to Spurs. Or Spurs are going to sell him for massive money. When he goes, Gassama, there's been interest in him from other clubs over the world this transfer window, but we're not taking it. He's staying. We want him. So the idea of SKOV Olsen, I think it's like a 7-figure deal that we're seeing on the Rangers Review, which is a fantastic news source that I listen to all the time. You know, you used to read the papers and you would go, who is this gym trainer? Like this article, he's saying he's objective, he's saying he's neutral. But I think he's a Celtic supporter. I'm convinced he's a Celtic supporter. You know, and Celtic supporters are reading it going, this guy's supposed to be objective, he's supposed to be neutral, this is the so-called Herald writer. But I'm convinced he's a Rangers. But I think he was well working at Rangers, this guy. You know, whereas now, they're telling you, oh no, we're Rangers guys, and you're trying to work out, no, what news source are you actually working for? Where are you actually? That's the kind of opposite. I'm not saying others in worse or whatever, but but they were saying it's 7-figure for the loan deal. That's fine. It was £14 million that Wolfsburg bought him for. Was it €14 million? Big money anyway that they bought him from Bruges in the summer. Hasn't quite worked out. He's played in the German Cup. I think he scored in the German Cup. He scored 1 goal in 8 appearances in the Bundesliga this season. It's not really hitting it. Injury problems, of course he has. Of course he's coming to Rangers. He's got a few injury problems, but definitely worth a wee gamble. This guy's a bit of a legend. 26 years old, 40 caps for Denmark, 8 goals for Denmark. One of them was against France when France were still the world champions in a Nations League game. So it wasn't even like a friendly. He scores a winner on a 2-0 win for Denmark in Copenhagen against the world champion French in 2022. So he didn't play in the 4-2 defeat for Denmark at Hampden this year's World Cup, this season's World Cup, but they won the previous World Cup. We also played Denmark in the group. We beat them 2-0 just to make sure we were going to be in the playoff place. Denmark had already finished top of the group. Soapy Suter scored the first goal in that game. I was at that one. And so he played the whole game in that one. So he's used to losing at Hampden, so he should fit right in at Rangers. That's not nice. But he's Nordsjælland, and then he does so well that he goes to Bologna. He's played a couple of seasons in Serie A, scored goals and stuff like that, done the business there. Then he goes to Club Bruges for a couple of seasons and tears it up, just absolutely rips it up in Belgium, wins a double, wins another league title, and he scored 30-odd goals in the league over the course of the 2 seasons he was there. It's a class act. This is an absolute class act that we have got the idea of even just having Gassama down the left and SKOV OLSEN down the right. We've got the option to buy him at the end of this season. I'm very, very excited about this. Just want it confirmed. And if it doesn't get confirmed, that's why I don't pay attention to transfer talk. We have got Finlay Cortes is supposed to be going out to Rugby Park on loan. So he's going to Kilmarnock. Maybe that's been sorted. Maybe that's official now. Again, these things are happening all the time this month. But going to Rugby Park, which is the place where he was subbed on and then subbed off for Rangers earlier this season, maybe telling him, I'm not going to get a game here. And he embarrassed a lot of these new signings of ours by just coming on the pitch at Paisley with his 10 pence mixture and he's 99. What are we doing now? Just, I'll equalise. He scores the equaliser. All these new signings that we can't they can't do the business, and he's scoring against Panathinaikos in the Champions League, and he's scoring against Alloa in the League Cup. Scored 3 different competitions and a couple of late equalisers to make it 2-2 against Bruges and Middlesbrough in the big pre-season friendlies we played at Ibrox as well. It's a confusion for a lot of folk as to why Finlay Cortes isn't getting a game at Rangers, but I think maybe a bit of tactical. Even that game at Kilmarnock comes off the bench, and it's 0-0 when he's involved in the kind of extended 1-2, that really strange opening goal we scored, the strange build-up to it. He's involved in that, and Finlay Cortes makes it happen. You know, he's making stuff happen. Really good player, but it'll be in good hands with Neil McCann and Billy Dodds down there. So all the best to Finlay Cortes if that goes through. If that's where he's going to go, Oscar Cortes is off to Huracan. He's not going to get a break. He's going straight into another full season. The summer and winter seasons. They're still doing the Apertura Clausura thing in Argentina. I don't know. But he signed for Huracan, a cracking club over in Argentina. He's gone there on loan with the option to buy, from Sporting Gijón in Spain. It's not worked out from there. Folk keep that's a disastrous signing, and it's turned into a disaster because we spent $4 million on the guy. But I don't think he had a history of injuries, and when he was playing for us, he was fantastic. He was well worth. He was a £4 million player when he first arrived. So it's just one of those unfortunates. It's something that happens. As I say, Mo Diamandi, all these Nordsjælland guys turning up. Mo Diamandi is obviously the de facto director of football at Ibrox. Tor Rommens, this Belgian under-21 left-back isn't... I don't think he's played for Nordsjælland at any point in time, but he'll feel like he has by the time he leaves Rangers. So he's arrived. That's official as well. That was made official on Wednesday night. He said his whole moment on Rangers TV. I've not actually seen his Rangers TV interview. I was too busy screaming and shouting at the fact he was injured when he arrived, but he's the real deal. Big guy, bombs up and down that wing. That's what we want, and we need cover for Jayden Magoma. But Jayden Magoma is a £10 million player, isn't he? He's a £10 million player, so he's not, and he's done himself into a bit of a fixture in that team. And we initially thought it because we'd no other option. We're really having to rely on him. We had to go 5 at the back to make sure I've covered all this. But Tor Rommens is here to give us cover at left back, to give us more options at left back, probably to be the starting left back, the first choice left back. You would think a really good level from Westerlo playing in Belgium again. And we had I talked about Rommens and CHUKWUANI, their kind of careers and that to date in detail in the previous, what pod was it? The Aberdeen preview pod. You know all about him anyway, but I did like CHUKWUANI's first interview in Scotland, his Rangers TV interview, where he was, that's why the fans say we are the people. And I'm thinking, very good, mate. Aye, nice. It's obviously Diamandi's primed him. This is how you get rid of these mugs. Just act pure staunch. What's staunch, man? What's staunch? I'll tell you what staunch is. That's the we are the people, and there's so many famous players here. Gaza, Brian Laudrup. I could go on. Could you? Go on then. Go on. Tell me some more famous Rangers players. But too much of this from, I'm not like it's good. It shows that he's proactive. He wants to be here. He's up for it. He wants to get the Rangers fans on side. I'm really looking forward to it. He's exactly what we need as well. Rangers Review did an interview with somebody. I haven't watched the whole of it. I just caught the little bit. It was a Sturm Graz podcaster or an Austrian football expert in general. But I was saying that CHUKWUANI can play at 6, has played at 6, but I don't think he's necessarily a 6, which is, I think, what we need. He's a kind of sitting, aggressive midfielder. He says himself he likes to get forward quick. He's quite physical, he's quite fast. He played that whole 90 minutes against us when they beat us in Graz this season in the Europa League group stages, Tochi CHUKWUANI, and he was saying, I could tell then that they're a great club, they're a massive club. How? how could you? We have 2,000 fans with that night at most. Was it just the songs we were singing? Was it the fact that we had the manager's face with a big red line through it hanging in a banner over the fence? But I could tell then they're a great club. He was trying to schmooze us in that interview, and I'm all for that. But with too many guys, the 2000 kind of 12, 13, 2011, 12, 13, so many rotation of various directors and wannabe owners telling us that they were Rangers. Oh yeah, Super Rally scored that goal in the Stanley Cup final. What a basket that was against the Celtics. That was phenomenal. So if you're going to do that thing, just the Rangers TV, just say to them, who else? No, we'll get plenty of time. Who else? Name other Rangers players. If he starts giving it, John McDonald, Polaris, been down in the Bucks so easy, but hey, a great player. And I don't know why I've got him being American when he's Danish with Nigerian parents, but he's picked up this kind of transatlantic accent despite the fact he's never been across the Atlantic. He's just played in Austria and Denmark and that. But he's Shuggy Burns. The guy comes in and starts going, Shuggy Burns, biggest thighs in football, and he bombed up and down that when he's played at fullback. Nobody got in the way of Shuggy. You'll think, right, this guy does know Rangers, so many famous players, but he's up for it. He's trying to schmooze us, and I hope to see him playing against Annan CHUKWUANI. He is a unit, and we need units. Skooshing it at Parkhead and Pittodrie, talking of Václav Černý. He scooshes the Celtic fans last season, and then you're right, 2 sheep, 1 cup incident at the weekend there, where Nico Raskin's getting involved with a bitter old man hanging over the tunnel like a coward, a height advantage. You're going to fight somebody, you don't like, right, I'll come down to you, so it's at a level. He's chucking cups and bits of water over them and saying things, in front of a child as well, if you want to get histrionic about it. The steward should be in there, but I like Big Phil, who gets in touch, another one of the many legends I've got. So many folk getting in touch, and I've not a chance to get back to as many folk as I want to. And it's really starting to annoy me because I love the comments. And it's great. And I'm trying to get. Big Phil got in touch, and he was talking about Raskin and saying, well, what Černý did last season at Parkhead, it's actually a deterrent. There'll be less away fans. Or when we're playing away from home, less of the home fans will be inclined to have a go at Rangers players when they know they're going to get totally soaked. I think I was talking about the weekend about the council, the refuse collectors guys getting past with the big bin lorry, and on the side of it says, don't no physical abuse or verbal abuse it's not acceptable. Treat our workers with respect. Rangers should get that on the side of the team bus when they're pulling up. But you've been warned. You're going to get scooshed if you give us any hassle. John Walker, tactical analysis pods, really good, kind of 5 to 10 minute videos explaining how football works, basically to idiots like me that watch it all the time but never really understand it, and explain and giving a bit of kind of backup sometimes to destroying some of the half-assed opinions I've got, but also explaining what this thing that I think's happening. I don't think, I'm like everybody else, I think Nico Raskin should be an 8. I don't think he should be a 6. I've watched John Walker's tactical analysis on that, and he shows you why. He gives you examples, gives you clips, and breaks it down, and gives you some of the kind of jargon, the kind of the way that coaches and that speak, and it helps you. There's just no business jargon. It's actually helping you understand what's going on. And Nico, things like the hands up thing, the set pieces. What we're doing just now with set pieces and the raised hands means when the hands come down, that means the corner's coming in. Get moving. I think there's something going with the one hand. If it's one hand and something with 2 hands, one hand maybe means it's going to be a short corner. We're going to mess about with it. 2 hands, maybe the ball's coming straight in. I don't know. But I know when there's a moment about 12 minutes into the game at Pittodrie where Aberdeen clear one set piece into their box. They clear it, just boot it right up off the halfway line, and Tar runs back after it. He's the last man, so he chases back after it, but he's got plenty of time. And he's got his hand up before he even gets on the ball. When he gets back to the Aberdeen goal, he's facing his own goal, but he's got his hand up already as he gets towards the ball, and he turns around and he punts it straight back in. Don't think anybody gets on the end of it, I don't know. But I think even then he's saying, no, just stay where you are. Remember the goal we scored against St Mirren? Was it Fernandez? Was that against St Mirren? It was a recycled ball after a corner or a foul, comes back in, he side foots it, and I think that's him saying, just stay there, it's just coming back. Don't leave their box. But he explains it a lot better, John Walker, in his tactical analysis pods, and he was talking about how Nico Raskin is reactive rather than proactive. When he's playing at 6, his problem is he wants to jump into tackles, and he was showing you various instances of that. The worst of all, of course, being the Scottish Cup final, the season before last, but in the last minute of that Scottish Cup final. But he wasn't alone in the mistakes that day in that moment in that cup final. But he wants to jump in because he's reactive. He's a young guy. Basically, he's hot-headed, the thing we've always thought. But the goal he sets up, Chermiti's first goal, the equaliser he sets up at Parkhead for Chermiti, just on the 3rd of January there, when he's just bombing through folk and getting to that byline, cutting it back. He was threading the needle in the build-up to the corner from which we got our opener at Pittodrie the other day as well. You watch him going up that kind of inside right channel, and it's 1-2. He's just like Asgard and Gassama. He's getting everybody involved in but he's the football brain and the driving force. He's an 8. He's got to play forward because he's reactive. A young man just wants to get after the ball, doesn't he? He wants to go in there all the time. If we get protection behind Raskin, get a 6 and a proper 6. It's just the world is our oyster. And I thought maybe. So John Walker, Tactical Analysis Pods, he was explaining it's because Nico Raskin he needs to know the difference between reactive and proactive. Proactive, you're thinking ahead of you're planning stuff out. I'm not going to dive in here, I've got to hold the line. You're thinking ahead of things, and I thought maybe, perhaps, initially when I saw it on Sunday, that moment at the mouth of the tunnel after the game was the most reactive moment of Nico Raskin's career so far. He's just maybe taking that too far, but I was saying, let's not judge it until we know what's happened. Don't know what was said and all that, but we didn't need to know what was said. No audio was required. Somebody had filmed it for the back of the Dick Donald stand, the incident, and you could see that this ratbag Aberdeen fan had already been chucking stuff, water or whatever, paper cups, at Rangers players on their way up the tunnel. Maybe he hit Raskin, or Raskin was just taking it upon himself to get a quick bit of fairly harmless revenge. And if you listen to the guy's, he's not, I've been really smart. He's got a kind of cocky smell on his face, and then next thing he's totally moaning and greeting about it because he gets a bit of taste of his own medicine. You can't sanction these things, you can't condone these things. They should always be transgressive. We can't have football getting out of control, but within that, that's good. It's good to see sticking up for ourselves, not letting anybody take the piss, and I quite enjoyed that. But the stewards, Aberdeen, it's badly managed. I don't know if I got one. Did it have that? Was it a bit? Is it extended? I should have checked back. The thing you get in the mouth of the tunnel where it's kind of pulled out like a prolapsed arsehole. It comes out from the mouth of the tunnel to offer more cover. Maybe it was too windy to bring that out. Actually, the players just need to they bring it onto the grass, so the players don't even need to cross the track. But they shouldn't be allowing spectators to stand at that bit, because you're 6 foot off you're 6 foot off the pitch there. You get a height advantage to do something to players as they're going up the tunnel, and it should have been better stewarded as well, so that couldn't happen. But somebody had filmed that the guy had actually been up to something before that at the players, and you can actually hear, if you listen to Danny Röhl's post-match presser. It's a very good post-match presser. It's only 5 minutes long. Rangers TV, his post-match presser at Pittodrie, in the press room in Pittodrie, and you'll see it's on the Rangers official, Rangers TV channel, the official YouTube channel. Just click onto that, and you see Danny Röhl with the red all behind him, and it's only 5 minutes long, but I think it's about second 21 to 28, the very first minute of that post-match press conference for Danny Röhl at Pittodrie on Sunday night. It's second number 21 to 28, the 21st second to about 26, 28 seconds into that, but you can hear, I didn't realise how close it was to the tunnel, that press room. You can actually hear the reaction of the Aberdeen supporter to getting soaked. You can hear it in the background. It's really, really audible. It's quite. You should listen to that. Check that out. I'll maybe try and put a link at the bottom of this pod. But aye, Danny Röhl. Maybe that's why Danny Röhl was saying what he said. And I was worried a bit cocky. The kind of clean sheet, 3 points, job done. In his reaction to Luke Shanley of Sky. I think about, but Danny Röhl was right behind the incident, the water getting chucked about, so maybe he was just trying to play everything down, just get out of there. No big deals, no controversy, he'd get too into that kind of mindset. I'm going to play everything down here. So it's not quite an Arsenal versus Lazio in the 1970-71 Fairs Cup. Arsenal were the holders and they got Lazio early doors and they lost narrowly, I think, in Rome, but a tetchy game, but it was the days of still having the post-match banquet after a European game. But the Lazio players attacked the Arsenal players at the banquet and then outside in the street in Rome, sat out in the whole place as Lazio City. Really cheap, kind of not a typical Italian move, I would say. A move that Italians are known to go up to in a footballing sense. And it's famous amongst the Arsenal players and the Arsenal folklore that they had to basically stand in the alien streets. They've got the whole cities against them, and all the Lazio, players and their coaches and all that are surrounding them and attacking them out in the street after this banquet. And they all had to stand toe to toe, the Arsenal players, just to get around each other, and just Zulu, Rorke's Drift had to defend themselves, and they're all just basically an out and out fight. They're going toe to toe with all these yobs, and they beat them 2-0 in the second leg to go through. But Arsenal would eventually get the first. Cologne beat them, but they went on to win the double. When winning the double, the English double was still a massive thing in those days, and they think that was the moment that they all kind of gelled together as a team. They got that proper team spirit when it was like backs to the wall, literally having to fight for their lives, kind of thing. A bit of team bonding, so maybe that kind of thing's happening with the Rangers players. Soak them at Parkhead, soak them at Pittodrie, and get the points while you're at it. But you don't want to be too kind of... our players were getting stuff chucked at them by the Aberdeen supporters up at the Ultras when in the first half. That's got to be stewarded better as well. Big Fernandez getting hit. It's all lighters and cups and pies and stuff like that getting chucked. You don't know. You can never see coins flying through the air, but you imagine that's involved as well. Pretty dangerous stuff. You can't. It needs to be kind of transgressive. You can't have it getting used to start condoning players doing this kind of stuff. So maybe some sort of slap on the wrist for Raskin. We shouldn't react too badly to that. But at the same time, I mean, Aberdeen have got a hell of a lot to answer for the way that game was stewarded, and it might turn into a good thing for Rangers. VAR, the big man's goal getting disallowed. Big fan. I know you've all forgotten about this, but I should have done like 3 pods this week. Sorry, I've tried my usual, try to put it onto the same one, but I'll try and get this one out before midnight anyway, before the game that I'm previewing. That'll be a wee change. VAR disallowed the goal, and Fernandez heads it on. Mitov comes out, and I was talking about it. He contacts. There's contact with. And that's what Danny Röhl was saying. Well, you can see that there's contact from Fernandez's arm onto Mitov's arm. So we'll say that's the point. And I don't want to be all kind of Sutton and Boyd about it, no willfully incendiary, willful ignorance just to get likes and what have you. But I was raging at the time, just raging that it was disallowed for such a... When especially the same goalkeeper against the same player had done the same thing in the previous match. The previous Ibrox done it. He just wasn't able to get to the ball. He fell over his own arse on Tuesday night at Ibrox as Fernandez headed into a suddenly exposed net. No Aberdeen players were protesting. The same thing happened the other night at Pittodrie, so it seemed rubbish. But I think there is actually a protocol. Was it the range? Was it Heart and Hand free pod? I was listening to that. Maybe Davey Edgar and the fellow from Northern Ireland, can't remember his name, but they were talking about how it is actually. I think it is actually in the rules that if there's any kind of contact, and that's the problem with rules. Rules are by their nature pedantic. They have to try to account for everything that's going to happen with 22 athletes try to con each other across the course of 90 minutes plus. So they're by their nature never going to take it. They can't take everything into account, every eventuality. So they have to do these kind of broad stroke rules. That's what rules are all about. We don't have football without rules. And if they'll just cover it by saying if there's any contact by the attacking player's arms on the goalkeeper's arms, that'll be it then. But they will look at it again. Excuse me, because that's the one thing they do. I mean, A, rules are necessarily pedantic by their nature. B, rules are necessarily altered as VAR helps us learn more about how we should apply the rules. And C, the main thing we're learning is that none of us actually like rules stopping our team from scoring. I was doing the whole thing. It's because Mitov has dived too late. He can't actually get off the ground. That means he's then able just to go up and just touch Fernandez's arm and say, "Oh, I've been fouled," and that's basically what happened. But the rules is the rules, and that's different from maybe what's right. But I don't want to do one of these people who starts protect. I hate the rule, and you only talk about it when something happens that doesn't suit you. And the thing we're learning from VAR is none of us want the rules. None of us want football, but we ignore them. We're just quite happy to shout and moan over the top of them and try and work that into justification. And your broadcasters and newspapers aren't interested in telling you what's the boring truth. Apart from anything else, we keep getting this phraseology that's coming up just now. VAR keeps taking goals off us. And it is taking goals off Rangers. Heart and Hand, that pod I was talking about the other night, we're saying we've had 15 goals disallowed this season in the league. Celtic are the next highest with 8 disallowed. It feels like that. It does feel like that we've had 15 goals disallowed, but it's actually still quite stunning to know that. Now that's a case for the prosecution. It really is. particularly as this league and or the European places, this league title or the European places from the league placings this season will make a massive difference. It could come down to goal difference. That's Rangers winning the last two games 2-0. Celtic won the last two games 4-0 and 1-0. Hearts won the last two games 1-0 and 2-0. But we're not conceding goals. In the top three, only conceding goals in the last two games. It's all getting very similar. It's goal difference between us. It's only one goal between us and Celtic at this point in time, and then Hearts are only 6 points above the two of us. So it could losing 15 goals. I mean, I think about Big Fernandez's goal at Tynecastle, and it was offside. That's fine. So folks start talking about the lines. The lines don't look right. The lines are too thick. I mean, that's willful. There comes a point you just got to go, them's the rules, and we breached them, so it wasn't a goal. I need to check it again. Ref Watch on Sky, see if there's anything done about that. But I'm bemoaning the rule rather than the application of the application in this instance. You know, that's fine, but do that at the beginning of the season. You know, it's only when this is the problem with football. It's only when your team loses a goal. VAR is also allowing goals that you'd no idea. Like Tav's penalty against Dortmund, the first goal in that epic tie against Borussia Dortmund on our way to Seville. Nobody in the stadium had any idea that there'd been a handball except the guy who handled the ball. But then when you saw the replay, that's a handball. We should get a penalty, you know, and that's what's got as a goal there. A lot of times you think something's a mile offside, turns out it wasn't. So you get goals you don't expect just as often, maybe not just as often, as goals are ruled out. And there was a big controversy with Man City, Newcastle. We didn't even watch it. What happened in that one the other night? But I think what's just happening is people are just, it's just no fair. They keep talking about how the FA Cup was great at the weekend because there was no VAR. That means lots of goals were scored that didn't count. You know, it's a real kind of basic. We can't deal with the fact that we just want everything all the time. You know, it's the louder I shout about it and demand it, therefore it should happen. We don't have football without rules. That's the only way it's ever going to happen. You know, that is the beauty of football. If you've done something to break the rules and doesn't count, it's no actually. It's an insult to all the players who've managed to score a goal within the rules. You know, if you're suddenly allowed a goal because it's just no fair that it gets chopped off. You know, it's not a beautiful finish from the halfway line. If somebody was offside, if we fouled somebody to get the ball, it's no beautiful. It needs to be legitimate. Such a general rant against the attitude towards VAR. Danny Röhl wasn't interested in moaning about it anyway, so you can see that the contact in the keeper's arm. You know, I like this. I like the fact I do like a dignified silence approach to refereeing controversy. I've grown up with the undignified noise, the slandering from our rivals, particularly in the east of the city. Most of our achievements totally slandered as being cheating or whatever, but that slander developed from kind of self-motivation for some of our rivals. Nothing better than feeling a bit of a grievance going into a game, you know, to work yourself into a frenzy. But it became an actual material actions against us, postponing our games, and you know, referees going on strike and stuff like that. This there has to be a point where you do protest. The undignified silence, or the dignified silence, isn't enough. You have to protest. You have to go in hard, and we've been doing that in recent years under Patrick Stewart, who's now gone. So, it's something to keep an eye on. We're the form team. Yeah, but we're kind of the new team on the block. And the effort taken to get there, back into the top three title challenging block, is going to require this Scottish Cup and Europa League breather. A change is as good as a rest. I want to win both these games, obviously, but it's a wee change from the league. And the new signings, fresh blood, also gives us a boost. But I think the presence of Hearts leading the way in the league, it takes a lot of pressure off, rather than kind of doubling it as you'd expect. We've got two teams to contend with now for the title as opposed to one. I hate myself for saying this, and I don't want to go all kind of my bloody Valentine, but Hearts, you made me realise that a fresh challenge to the title, or a fresh challenge to the old firm, can be interesting, can be welcome in some respects for myself as a Rangers supporter. Yeah, Rangers fans like, yeah, but Celtic hate Hearts. It must be more unbearable for Celtic as neither of the alternatives to Celtic for winning the league this season actually suits them. Celtic fans will hate that. I think neither alternative suits us or Hearts either. Everybody just wants to win the league. You don't care that. Don't start thinking about who you would rather see win the league, but that's what's happening here. If it's no you, who would you rather win the league? No, I just want it to be us. But it's definitely starting to have a wee effect, I think. it's definitely in there. Hearts hate Celtic more. Hearts hate Celtic more than Celtic have ever hated Hearts. Hearts are Celtic's Aberdeen, and to get an idea of that as a Rangers supporter, how did you feel when, was it 2015-16, we were still in the Championship, romping the Championship, but there was that wee brief moment where it looked like Derek McInnes's Aberdeen might pull back, Celtic might win the league. What was his name? The Norwegian fella. Delia, Ronnie Delia. Remember Andy Walker being on the telly at Pittodrie, just going to get him sacked. Got to sack him now because this is going to be an absolute disaster. But in a league that Rangers aren't in, if we don't win that league, it's going to be terrible. But how did you feel then? Despite everything that Aberdeen are doing to us, even at the weekend, our supporters were delighted. We're like cheering them on. No, the Northern Lights of old Aberdeen. You're right behind Aberdeen, hoping that they could do it. So I think you can imagine that Celtic fans, and I've seen comments, etc., from Celtic fans, if they think it's between us and Hearts for the league, they're absolutely wanting Hearts to win that title. If Hearts win the league at Parkhead, if Celtic were out of it come the last few games of the season and Hearts win the league at Parkhead in the last day of the season, Celtic Park will burst into applause the same way the Barcelona supporters burst into applause when Atletico Madrid beat them at the Nou Camp in the last day of the 2013-14 Liga season, because at least it meant Atletico Madrid were champions as opposed to Real Madrid. In other seasons over the last 20 years, I think what Motherwell are doing right now would be mind-boggling, let alone what Hearts are doing. And it's all kind of augmented by the fact that Dundee, who pushed Hearts to the limit on Sunday, they've taken 2 points off us and 3 points off Celtic already this season, but none from Hearts. St Mirren drew with us in Paisley. They beat Celtic in the League Cup final, obviously, pushed Celtic quite late on before Celtic got a winner against them in the league meeting in Paisley. There's a general sense that nobody's safe other than Livingston are safe for the drop. You kind of really, the teams are, it's incredible. There's suddenly this kind of squeezing of the quality gap, but Dundee United took 3 points off Celtic at Tannadice. They've taken 2 points off us at Ibrox and Tannadice this year, taking 4 points off us in total. Dundee United, Hibs pushed the Old Firm close in our games against them. They beat Hearts. Hibs beat Hearts at New Year. It's typical, of course, Rangers, that every game being tougher for everybody in the league is when we start to put together this kind of run of 5 straight wins, rather than us doing it in most recent years when it's a case of Celtic are the only team we need to catch, and every time everybody else we play, if we drop 2 points against them, it's an absolute disaster. This is the time that we decide to beat everybody, when it's almost acceptable to be slipping up against Dundee and Motherwell and stuff like that, the way all these teams are playing this season. But everybody else is just kind of 2 or 3 points we can't afford to drop. Still, I would say, in every other game, but it's not as intense in that sense, I think, because we don't feel it's going to be Celtic that are going to necessarily win the league, and it's squeezing the quality gap between the bungling Old Firm and the rest. Like Russell Martin, and then Celtic sign Wilfried Nancy. It's quite incredible. Nancy's worse than Russell Martin, what he did at Celtic. Did they not watch us? Did they not see? It influences quite a lot of how their supporters feel. It influences what happened to Celtic, what's happening at Rangers. I'm sure they keep quite a close eye on it, certainly judging by the messages I get. Sometimes I think Celtic fans are quite interested in what Rangers are up to. They must have known how bad things were for us under Russell Martin. Rangers and Celtic, it's less than a year since they were out of Europe from last season. Celtic, I don't keep going on about it as if they almost beat Bayern, but they did nearly take them to extra time. This amazing Bayern Munich team just now. Celtic, it was the last 32 of the Champions League back in January. It was late January. No, February. It would be February. That Celtic, Bayern beat them at Parkhead, but then they go over there and they're beating Bayern up until injury time. And Munich, really, really tight. April, we're in the quarter-final of the Europa League and making a really good fist against Athletic Club Bilbao. And this season, the twos are just an absolute disaster in Europe. Absolutely embarrassing. So it's really quite amazing that the sudden drop in level. But more remarkable, I think a similar run would be in any of our top flight seasons of the last, 30, 25 years. this run we're on just now would be to standard. That's what you're supposed to do, especially through 9 in a row and what have you. But starting the season with 1 win from 8 under like Russell Martin and Stevie Smith has us needing to finish above Celtic, but merely wanting to finish above Hearts. I think we need to finish above Celtic. But I think there's a bit of a... I know the Champions League thing, the fact that we can go straight into the Champions League group stage changes that. But in terms of the internecine thing, in terms of this, the thing that really adds pressure to everything Rangers do, the rivalry with Celtic, the fact that the league almost isn't at stake for Rangers and Celtic, it's for Hearts. You know, it's a weird thing. Hearts are putting a kind of lid on the internecine angle, and a pressure sense. They're a pleasant distraction, an outlet, a valve. I hope St Mirren... I wished St Mirren last night would have pumped them, of course, and I wanted Falkirk to beat Celtic or take points off them. But the Rangers died and the Hearts survived. After us sympathising with Hearts in their post-Romanoff financial problems, and Rooney's, I've got a bit of bitterness towards Hearts. Rooney's, come on, you teddy bears, no one likes us. And I didn't realise how much nobody liked us until we were on our knees in 2012. I used to think it would be amazing, for example, to see Hibs winning the Scottish Cup for the first time since 1902. You think about these things in the abstract. So as a fan of Scottish football, to see Hibs lifting the Scottish Cup for the first time since 1902, that'd be quite a thing to see. Well, I did see it. I saw it right up close, and it was shite. It was just really manky, not in any way nice. Romance is dead. Scorched earth is all that will satisfy, and I continue to wait for us to strike the match. But I think the Swan Vestas are bought, and they are in the hands of a man who can kindle the right kind of fires as expertly as he puts out the damaging fires at source. I'm going to quickly talk about... This is going to be an epic pod, sorry folks, but it's the last time I'll ever do this. Not podding, but it's the last time I'll do the debrief from one game and the preview for the next game in the same podcast. I'm sorry it's so out of sync already as well. I was expressing worries that Danny Röhl was sounding a bit too kind of arrogant and dismissive in a few of his his media comments before the game at Aberdeen. I think it's a language thing, but his post-match, I think, in the Pittodrie press room blew that away. He's probably... his answer to Luke Shanley, as I said, he was trying to calm things down, probably with a kind of quick clean sheet, 3 points home, try to calm down the water chucking thing. But in the press room, he was praising the heck out of his team. He was answering questions about CHUKWUANI very perfunctorily. You know, his good physicality, good experience, but he turned it straight back to the guys who did the job on the pitch just kind of 10 minutes earlier. He was asked about Scott Fry. He isn't just a good coach, says Danny Röhl. He's a good guy as well. And all the coaches, it's not just about me, saying all the coaches are contributing just as much to our good run. It's an amazing run that the team are on just now. Keep calling it an amazing run. The jobs, lots of praise for the chairman as well, for bringing in CHUKWUANI, for giving him the money, for CHUKWUANI arriving, and hell, even the kind of praise for Kevin Thelwell for getting in, for getting in. The erstwhile Kevin Thelwell got in Scott Fry in as our set piece coach. And the thing is, lest anybody thinks that he, Danny Röhl, is taking credit for Scott Fry's appointment. He's putting out little fires like that, little potential negatives, even something as small as that. The idea that he might be seen as being the guy who appointed Scott Fry. He's putting out fires before they can even get lit. He's scooshing them with the water. Thelwell Asgard, another of the players who are improving. A lot of the squad were not in a good way, he said, when he arrived at the club. So he is, I think, only kind of saying these things, constantly praising the team and constantly praising the pro, so that no one player feels he is the only player who had to get his arse in gear. He then kind of balances that by praising them, the players, for a fantastic run of wins. As soon as he mentions one particular individual, I always kind of go against the hysteria, and this, like Danny Röhl certainly is. He's brilliant, he's fantastic, and we're going to win the league and all that. I'm always worried that's not going to happen, and then we'll turn on him hysterically. So I'm always trying little points where I think, is he starting to get a bit cocky, a bit arrogant? But no, it's all part of the plan. Of course it is. Of course it is. I am very big. And unfortunately, in the stomach area, and unfortunately for you, I am not in any way shy. But you'll remember when I did come back for the Isle of Skye, I did a pod from Skye, and I went in holiday in Skye in October, just past there. The second I got there from my October week holidays, it was a Saturday we arrived, a wee cottage we'd got. the news was coming through on the phone that Stevie G had withdrawn from the process of replacing Russell Martin. I had to do a podcast with you guys the next day, this Sunday. I needed to know what you think. I need to get it off my system. And the way back from Sky, the end of that week, it's a place I'd never been to in my life, Sky. Because you hear all about it. But I just, my in-laws, my wife's mum and dad had been there plenty of times. And they'd probably come back and just go, oh, it's beautiful, you should go. And we were like, oh, Berlin for us, I think, maybe New York. And because they're great people, they wouldn't push it. They just, there you go, I'll tell you it's great, that's it. What more do you need to know? If you don't want to go, you don't want to go. I wish they'd slapped us about the face and said, go to this place. It's a bit snob, a bit kind of, Scottish. I could do Scotland anytime I like, so you never do various places in Scotland. It's one of the most magical places ever. And it's no Scotland, it's Skye. It's something completely different. Utterly magical place. And it would have been ruined, I think, if it hadn't been for Danny Röhl emerging as favourite for the job. Through the middle of that week, Stephen Gerrard's had knocked us back. And I wasn't bothered about Gerrard. I wanted Danny Röhl the minute he was kind of quoted for the job. Instinctively, he felt like the kind of guy we should be getting. But it was a bit embarrassing. It was like, uncertainty is the real killer. So Gerrard's getting quoted. He's the guy that's supposed to be getting the job. That's fine. Let's just get this done and get on with it. But then that all falls through. It's a bit embarrassing. But I don't know if it was the day that we went to Uig or we went to I think we went to Portree, went to the capital, Portree, and didn't realise how the Old Manor store was just kind of along the road a bit. But we went back to the Old Manor store and all that and drove right up Trotternish, the whole peninsula, come over the back. So it was one of the magical days. I think this place is just a different. No wonder they use it for sci-fi locations and all that. When they're shooting these films, it's unbelievable. The grave of Flora MacDonald, which is also the cemetery in which Alexander McQueen is buried, because he had this whole fascination with the Highlands. And I'd seen Alexander McQueen's exhibition down at the Victoria and Albert Museum in one of the non-Scottish holidays we did before, and that was unbelievable. So it was kind of, you could see where he got the inspiration for the Widows of Culloden line of clothes. And it's a cemetery that's up in the sky, almost, no pun intended. It feels like it's up in the air and the rain come on, and there's a museum, the same road, the same access road to the cemetery. There's a museum of Highland life with all kind of cottage with a thick thatch on it and what have you, and the rain comes on and it takes away the romance. You suddenly couldn't make it. The Western Isles and that did disappear. There's Harris and Lewis and that, it's as if you could just walk out to them, but then they disappear off the horizon. The cloud comes in and you're walking in, because we got there so late, had to park the car and walk up through the whole cemetery to go up there. This is unbelievable. And I get back, there's a magic in the air. And I get back to the digs and it's dry again suddenly. And we drive back one of these days and thought, we'll sit outside. There's a wee bench and that outside. You can sit and enjoy the view. Grabbed a beer, no doubt, and grabbed the guest book. The visitors book, where everybody writes down the folk that have been there, but a bit nosy, and everybody. I wanted to see what other people had been saying about their stay in this cottage and this island and that. And you read through all the guests, and I mentioned this at the time. Sorry for hearing this again, but I was reading through all the guests, and it's like Dave and Margaret from Glasgow, Jim and Sheila from Sydney. I said Sheila, but it's all over the world. There's people come from tourists go to from all over the world. But back in July, only 3 or 4 visitors earlier, Zwickau, Germany. This people, and it was 1 female name and 2 male names. And it's probably a husband and wife and their 1 boy. But I'm like, Zwickau, and by this point, and I was obsessed with Danny Röhl by this point in time. In between times in the holiday, I'm looking at my phone and all that, and I'm checking all the details on Danny Röhl, this guy that's going to get the job at Rangers, and I'm liking more and more of what I'm hearing about him. And I noticed that he's from Zwickau, old East Germany. And I'm like, this week of all weeks, we're here, and somebody in a cottage at somebody from Zwickau, of all places, has been like a few months earlier. I'm thinking July. All right, I think he was still in it. We had Russell Martin was manager by that point of Rangers, but I know we'd talked to Danny Röhl before, So maybe I've got to go up to Scotland and talk. Scotland, and the Germans know more about Scotland than us. They'll be totally, oh, right, Dad, can we go to Loch Lomond? Can we go to Skye? Can we go see, Flora MacDonald's grave and stuff like that? And they'll be like, oh, Dad, okay. No, once we move up there, if I get the job, we'll go and do that. Oh, and maybe he's just Sheffield Wednesday, get rid of him because they were fronting PCs and doesn't have the Rangers job, and maybe just think, I had it in my mind that he said, let's go back up. Come on, I'll give you that holiday in Scotland I was promising you. We'll go up to Skye. We'll have a wee week in this cottage in Skye. Don't put my name in the book, because I don't want the Daily Record might get a trick. And it's just the wife and his two wee. But I don't even know if he's got two. But I know he's got two Waynes. They're probably both lassies. But I was that's Danny Röhl's wife and his two wee boys. That's there's a male name and it's two male names and a female name. But it's Zwickau, Germany. I'm thinking that's absolutely incredible. And I'm sitting out there just. How could he be in the same? And it just felt like a sign. It felt like in the middle of a week in which, by the time we get back down, by the end of the week on the Friday, we're leaving to go back down the road because we were playing Dundee United on the Saturday. So Alec had to get home for the fitba. I was stopping at Fort William to refuel myself and the motor. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm looking at stuff. But at this point, it emerged that Kevin Muscat was favourite for the job, and I'm like trying to commit. I'd done all this with Russell Martin. Didn't want him, but I convinced myself. I can see why we're trying to get him. Okay, I can get on board with the expansive football. And I'm sitting this time in the car park at Morrison's in Fort William, and I'm just flicking through my phone. This is me. I'm flicking through my phone in my hand, reading. I watched a YouTube interview on Chinese TV with Kevin Muscat, and I'm thinking that sounds all right, But I was in a downer, and then he didn't take the job either, and we went back. I think it was Kavanagh has gone back to Danny Röhl for a third time. By this point, he was pissed off with Rangers. You're messing me about, but he went back and he convinced him. He convinced him to come back and be Rangers manager. And I feel as if Danny Röhl gave me my holiday then. I was in a downer because Gerrard had packed it in. I was in a downer because Gerrard was taking it, a worse downer because he'd knocked us back so publicly. I was in a downer on the Friday because Kevin Muscat, but in the 4 or 5 days in between, the thought that Danny Röhl was not the favourite, he was going to take the job. And I saw somebody else, Zwickau, was in the same cottage as us previously. It gave me my holiday. It let me enjoy the magic of Skye. And I think he's gave us back with these 7 league games, of which only 3 points were dropped. He's given us back because Rangers supporters were festive period. Christmas, New Year, it's fine on that. Be Happy New Year. Is it? No, if we get beaten. The third it'll not be. There's a bit of tension there. You need to get through these results, and he's given us that wee holiday. And I think as Rangers finally kind of close the gap to the top, it's quite apt that we're playing Annan Athletic, who beat us. Beat us in the 3rd division. Another reminder of our time in the lower leagues. We've got all these players coming in. We've got a manager who obviously knows what he's doing. I think we're closing the gap to what Rangers were. And what Rangers will be again will be exactly the same as we were before everything that happened kind of 2011, 2012. And it's been lovely, folks. Right, quick. Danny Röhl's pre-Annan. He's pre-Annan Athletic at Ibrox presser today. Liam Kelly, no drama. No drama with Danny Röhl. Liam Kelly's presser is absolutely brilliant. If you want to know anything about Annan Athletic, don't listen. Just listen to Liam Kelly's pre-match presser. I'm assuming he's going to be playing. Listen to his pre-match presser. He's got a full dossier on Annan Athletic. It's absolutely brilliant, Liam Kelly, and his press conferences. So our number 1 reserve goalkeeper, he knows the skinny and that, but it's no drama under Danny Röhl. Everything's just simple, straightforward. Even at half-time at Parkhead, he says, he just comes in. You think, there's drama out in the park, everybody's getting hysterical. He means us, because we're not going to beat 1-0, no, but we're getting played half the park. It's not working. Just change this, we're going to do that. 3-1 Rangers. I say only at Rangers is, injury news is signing news, and it's quite funny, Daniel. He does seem chilled out, and he's on it. He's quite self-effacing, and there's nothing arrogant about this guy at all. He's if it's 1 day longer, it says two ROMMENS are latest signing. If it's 1 day longer, he's going to be out for 10 to 14 days with this injury he's got. If it's 1 day longer, please don't be too serious with me. He knows. He's learned quick that at Rangers, if you say something, it will be remembered to the exact word. You will be taken at your exact word. Not a good poker player, he said when asked about SKOV OLSEN. Because it's not officially done yet, that deal. Hope it is by the time you're listening to this podcast. If you get to this point in this podcast, but he says he's basically admitting that he's in the building. Almost, he's getting he's at Auchenhowie anyway, getting his medical and whatever. And we're sorting out the personal details. He says there's 3 teams in the title race, which he thinks is going to go into the last day of the season. Planning the pre-season friendlies, go to Denmark. We always got good players over there. The club are trying to get more players in. So that's getting a 6, getting a proper 6. He's really happy with how proactive Andrew Kavanagh has been. You know, somebody had remembered, good journalism, somebody had remembered that he'd said this thing just before the transfer window of wanting the club to be bold. Just go for it. Find out the kind of player you want and just go for it. And this guy said, you think they've been bold enough? And he's fucking basically, yeah, enjoying this. So we're trying to get more players, but we've got some good signings in already, but obviously we're trying for more. And I think we're setting ourselves up for the Champions League group stage. No, just try. I know there's this loophole, except it means that if we finish top of the league, we go straight into the group stage. I don't think we're setting ourselves up to qualify for the Champions League via the Champions League. I think we're setting ourselves up to hold our own in the Champions League, or to limit the damage, because we'll get absolutely gubbed in the Champions League. I don't care how much money the 49ers have got, but they're spending what they have to get as a team that can actually compete, maybe at Ibrox, against the 2 of the easier 4 games we get at Ibrox, and maybe grab a point away from home or something like that. We're getting ourselves set up for the actual Champions League group stage, I think, with the players that we're starting to get in, and the head coach that we've got in. It's really, really exciting. He was talking about CHUKWUANI, ROMMENS and SKOV OLSEN are big physical units, or Joshua Barry, fantastic journalist, Joshua Barry, number 1 journalist as far as I'm concerned. I love the Rangers Review. I think they're great. I don't care what school MD went to. When I say what school they go to, I never mean Catholic or Protestant. I just mean private or council. So it's just all these guys are big physical units that we're getting in the door. He says it's not just in the league. You've realised in Scotland, he's realised in Scotland, because it's a very physical league, but it's not just that. The Roma game, we played Roma in the Europa League, we all saw it. We particularly saw it, the set pieces. It was a taste of the medicine that we are now dishing out to everybody else in Scotland. Roma were big. They were big units. And it's just a lovely line where he says, on the training pitch now, I look and I see my team is growing. My team is growing. He's getting big boys running about in Rangers shirts just now. The shirt that is getting a bit lighter, he says, as we start putting results together and getting a bit of confidence. But football is about physicality, intensity. You've got to win duels, and then you get that X factor as well. It's not just all about big guys. You've got guys that have got the skills as well. Get a 6, let Raskin push forward, and away we go. I mean, I was wanting rid of Raskin under Russell Martin. He's a troublemaker, you know. And I think he's. But it's been explained to me by somebody who knows football. John Walker's tactical analysis. So going to have a look at that. But it's noticed about the physicality. You've got that X factor as well, but you've got to have the physicality. Annan Athletic, and it's got. Don't worry about it. I know with Alloa in the League Cup, we seem to be doing a tour of lower league nightmares. I mean, just being in the Scottish Cup is a nightmare for us, but no, I mean, I know, because when we went through with Alloa in the semi-finals of the semi-final, they took points off us away from home as well. Alloa, I think they gave us a hard time at Ibrox as well, a few of the times we played them in our lower league days, but the worst one ever, of course, was the Petrofac Training Challenge Cup. We're 2-0 up in that semi-final. It's a one-legged semi-final at Alloa, at Recreation Park, the Indodrill Stadium, and 20 minutes to go, we're 2-0 up, and they get beat 3-2. Not extra time or anything, like, just get beat 3-2 by the end of the game. Quite incredible. So here we are with Annan Athletic, and of course the last time we played in the Scottish Cup, it was Queen's Park, the original Scottish Cup team, the team that's won the Scottish Cup the most outside of the Old Firm. So it wasn't embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing to get beat at home by them, but don't worry about it. I mean, because Queen's Park were a championship side, you know, and Annan are in there with 7th, I think, in League 2 just now. So, absolutely, when's the last time we lost to a League 2 side at Ibrox? No, they were a 3rd division side when Annan beat us the last, and they finished 8th in the 3rd division that season. The last time they won it at Ibrox back in 2012-2013, towards the end of that season, a day I will never forget. That was quite a chastening one. I remember. The whole just being in the 3rd division, the whole season was just mental. The whole time in the lower leagues was like, why are we here? What's happening? This is you knew, but the feeling was just surreal. And we're doing that thing of trying to be grateful to the lower league clubs for letting us play, ostracised by the rest of the top end of Scottish football, most of which we'd financed. to their present state. But the lower league clubs were letting us join in the third division as it was then, because although Rangers being at the top flight wasn't going to affect anything the following season, the SFL, the Scottish Football League, and the SPL were just gone. They're gone, and we got this new thing called the SPL, and they introduced the pyramid system that the lower league clubs and non-league clubs have been crying out for years. That came out, but it's not. Rangers getting into the lower leagues didn't affect Scottish football at all. So we're being grateful to these clubs, so we're applauding them off the park at Ibrox. And it was Peterhead and Annan. They both beat us at Ibrox that season in the league, and I don't know what one came first. I think Peterhead was second, in a kind of clap. But I remember the Annan game, we get beat 2-1, and it's Ali Love, a guy called Ali Love, scored against us. What a lovely name, a lovely fella. And who's the Greek fella? Stereo. Oh, the guy would go to AEK Athens or something. Got this fella. It was a right back, but I remember him having a total swipe at Ali Love off the ball in injury time. Real bitter kind of thing. And I'm like, that's no Rangers. No, you do it during the game. Yes, you just because you're getting beat, you don't, and you were really conscious of what it was to be Rangers when we're in the third division. There was a lot of that going on. We'd gone to Annan the first time that season. It was live in the telly, 0-0, 2-0. And we beat them 3-0, I think, the first game at Ibrox. We went back down to Annan and beat them 3-1, and this was the last meeting with them in the league that season. I think these were the first times we ever met Annan. We'd ever played them in competitive football, and they beat us 2-1. And I remember this Greek fella, and I was I'd bought a 6-month season ticket at that point, and for the second half of the season in the East Enclosure. I was having right down the front, just right next to where this happened. And I remember at the end of the game, we did that thing, we'd applaud the opposition off the park, and I was almost going to do that thing of just shouting. I went down towards at the end of the game. I was going to shout to Ali Love, listen mate, I'm sorry about that. That was a disgrace, what he did there. He shouldn't be doing that as a Rangers player, having a go at you off the ball just because. And then Ali Love is just turned out a complete cunt. But so it was found out later when I went to Alec Lowry, when he's Ali Lowry was playing for us in the reserves and stuff like that. So he's an absolute bastard, but things were going a bit far in those days. But that was Annan beat us. That was a memorable Saturday at Ibrox. Applaud. Thanks, you can't just applaud them when we beat them. You've got to applaud them after the park as well. Jesus Christ. Annan only came into the league in 2008-2009 to replace Gretna, who'd financial troubles. Oh my God, what an embarrassment. And Gretna 2008, the one time I went down to see Annan Athletic was before what happened to us. We're playing Stranraer. I just wanted to go down and go to Galabank to keep up my record of having been to every league ground in Scotland. So I went down to Galabank, and Gretna are playing on the pitch behind them. There's an open pitch, a kind of public pitch, which is just behind Annan's. So obviously they're big rivals down there to the south, right in the south of Scotland. Big rivals of Queen of the South. They're not big rivals, but also a rivalry with Gretna. But then Gretna were playing in a pitch right behind it. I think they played at Galabank a few times as well, Gretna, when they were trying to build up again. Gretna 2008 and all that, who I've seen a few times. I've seen them play at Dumbarton against the Rangers Colts, and I've seen them playing at Maryhill against. They were using Maryhill Juniors ground as a home ground for what was that? Would that be the Lowland League? I think I saw them there as well. But anyway. No, it wasn't them that were using it. Who was it was using it? Nobody's interested. We're talking about Annan. We're not talking about Gretna. That's quite interesting. But I think they've been members of the SFA. That way they could play in the Scottish Cup from 1978. Annan, a great non-league side, but they joined. They became members of the SFA, full members, so they could play in the Scottish Cup since '78. But I've only covered. I think we've only played them the 6 times. Starting off with the third division jaunt. If we played them before then as a non-league club that maybe played against them in the Scottish Cup, I don't remember it. So I'm imagining this has only played them 6 times before. This is only our 7th meeting with Annan Athletic, the Galabankies, the gold and black, the traditional lower league colours. But they are 7th just now in League 2, the 4th tier of Scottish football. They're 7th in a 10-team league, which sounds bad, but I think if they win their 2 games in hand, they'll actually go at 3rd. They haven't played a game in January yet. The last 2 weekends, the games were cancelled because of the weather. But in December, they beat East Kilbride and East Kilbride, who are 2nd in the league just now, and they drew at home with Spartans who are running away with the 3rd division at this moment in time. So they're pretty useful. It's a kind of maybe a bit of an unreal league position. I think they're about 11 points away from the actual bottom, because you're not going into a playoff if you're from the second bottom spot. If you finish in the second bottom spot of the third division, you're only going into a playoff. If you're in the very bottom spot to drop out the league, the playoff with the Highland League, Lowland League playoff, it's all changing all the time as well. I'm having trouble keeping up with that, but they're not going to get relegated. They're not going to end up in that playoff. But they're closer to the top than it might look just now. But they are a League Two side, so surely we should be okay. This is Annan. We're playing Annan after Aberdeen. The first 2 games of January. It's the year is starting in a really kind of orderly fashion, alphabetical orders. We've got Annan, Aberdeen, Annan, and Aberdeen nil, as Billy Connolly would say. No, I'm not that joke. That Billy Connolly joke. BC Bulgarian club. We've got Ludogorets Razgrad on Thursday, and then it's Dundee, D-E-A, B, C, D, E. I hope we get Falkirk after that. It's quite an alphabetical start to the year, but I hope order is maintained and that we give Annan a thorough going over. There's no problems in it. Occasionally had problems in the 2020s and in the 20-teens with this first Scottish Cup game at Ibrox, or the second first. These kind of lower league games. Obviously, last season's took it to a whole new level. It's almost like us beating Fraser by a 5-0 in our first Scottish Cup game last season. That was too much. Usually we struggle a bit more. It's usually like 3-1 against Stranraer or something. 2-0 against Queen of South or Albion Rovers. It's those teams, not those scores, but. And then we kind of build ourselves up. It's usually as after a winter break. No winter break last season. And we've got a good league position. We're doing well in the league, and then we get the winter break, and then we come back with a Scottish Cup game against lower league opponents, which we don't do too well in. We did well. We beat Dumbarton 4-1 the previous season, our first game back under big Clermont, on our way to the finals. Dumbarton are doing the bottom end. They're the second last team in the third division. Don't want to see them going down. The first ever league champions of Scotland. First ever outright league champions, joint with ourselves. Obviously, it's the first league champions, but first ever outright league champions of Scotland. And Clyde, I'm always happy to see the Bully Wee. They don't like us, but I'm happy to see them back up the top end of the table. Didn't like the thought of them dropping out the league either, but I think they're up in third place just now in the third division. But in the League Cup group stage this season, Annan, they lost 6 goals or more in 3 of their 4 games, finished bottom of their table. They lost 8-2 at St Mirren, eventual champions of the League Cup, so no disgrace. They lost 6-0 at Gayfield to Arbroath. They got beat 6-1 at home by Ayr United. I think they drew with Forfar, and then they lost that in penalties. On the penalty shootout you get if there's a draw in the League Cup group stage. And the next time we played them after our time in the third division was in the League Cup group stage. The one time we played in it because we'd failed to win that Scottish Cup final in 2016, so we come back into top flight 2016-17, had to play money in Europe, so we had to play in the League Cup group stage. And I think we opened up a game against Motherwell. I think we beat Motherwell at Fir Park, and then I was at the game. I was still on holiday when I played Motherwell at Fir Park, but I was at the game against Annan Athletic, which was like, this is back in the lower leagues again. Our first game back in the Ibrox and the Cups in the top flight. But we beat them 2-0 that night. Barry Mackay and Martin Waghorn scored the goals, but that was Nico Crancher's debut. And there's a game that season. We played a few more games. Then we get Peterhead in the next round, and we Queen in the South in the quarter final or something. We played a lot of lower league teams in that League Cup group stage that season, as you would expect. Motherwell, and that was a setup. But in that run in the League Cup we had that season, we had beaten the semis off Celtic. And I think at some point, that was Nico Crancher's debut for Rangers. His first start, I think, come on as a sub against Motherwell. And that's Nico Crancher, who was obviously well past it by the time we got hold of him, but Nico Crancher was one of the guys. I used to watch him playing for like Portsmouth and Spurs and QPR. This guy's amazing. Playing for Croatia. This guy is just the bit. You'd get excited in a naughty sort of way watching Nico Crancher. You're slightly in love with him. He's gorgeous, beautiful footballer. I used to fantasise about the idea. Even Rangers were minted. We couldn't afford Nico Crancher, and here he was playing against Annan Athletic. But in one of the games, I'm sure if you can tell me what one it was, he wore the armband. I think it might be like Kenny Miller had gone off, Lee Wallace had gone off as a sub, and it was against a lower league club. I always thought it was Annan, but it couldn't have been. He got subbed off that night for Joey Barton's first appearance for Rangers. Come on as a sub for Nico Crancher against Annan back in 2017-18 season, July 2017. But in one of the games, somebody went off the park and just gave the armband to Nico Crancher because he was like the oldest player on the park, after the most senior player on the park after whoever it was had departed. and obviously there was senior Rangers player, but just in terms of age and respect and what have you. And I just remember sitting there and thinking, okay, it's a crap game in an August or September Tuesday night against a lower league team. But I've got to see Nico Skooshes, captain in Rangers at Ibrox. It was absolutely lovely. I thought it was Annan, but it wasn't. So, player manager Willie Gibson, right back, also player manager of Queen of the South in previous seasons. He's 41-year-old. I don't know if he's been playing often this season. I played at Kilmarnock and a very varied career, but he's a local guy, comes from Dumfries. I think we played him in the Scottish. The last time we played, the sixth and final time until Friday that we played Annan Athletic was the Scottish Cup in 2021-2022. We beat them 3-0. It was live on a Saturday evening, wasn't it? I wasn't at the game. Quite happy not to be because it was lashing down. I remember that. Kamar Roof, Hollander scores the first goal. Kamar Roof scores the next goal. Fashion Sakala got the last goal in a 32nd minute. So it was an hour of getting soaked and seeing no more goals. That Polish fella, can't remember his name, they brought in as a fullback. It never happened from I think did he make his debut that night? And that's what we're kind of looking at. That's what we're kind of looking at with this game, getting a lot of players game time, a lot of squad players game time. But 4 times in the 3rd division. We've played them in the League Cup group stage, and this will be the 2nd time we've played Annan in the Scottish Cup. It should be easy. It should be routine. The manager of the day was saying that, well, he was talking about Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasgow, talking about Crystal Palace, talking about Real Madrid getting put out the Copa del Rey as well. So he said you've always got to total respect to every opponent, put in the same effort as always. You've got to take it seriously while telling us he was going to rest everybody and have the reserves playing. It's going to be an interesting night. He was basically saying a lot of players have their load managed, so they have to get a rest. They won't even be in the squad. Other players should be ready to go. They better be. Guys that have probably been bitching and moaning about not getting a first team game. Squad players, they better be ready to go. They're going to be getting Tour ROMMENS, the Belgian, he's injured, and it's quite bad because you think Jaden Magoma is one of the players who absolutely needs a rest. He's been playing non-stop for months on end through really pressured games. Young Jaden Magoma, he probably will get a rest, but I don't know how we'll work it at all, which makes it difficult for me to do my starting 11 prediction. I'm going to have to be bold here. I think reading between the lines, the manager's going to rest as many first teamers as possible. This is dependent on guys who might be out the door, who might be getting sold as I'm speaking to you. But I think we're going to go 4-4-2. And it's going to be Liam Kelly in goals, who was in goals against Queen's Park. And he gets asked about that today, and I think it was in the tip of his tongue to say, well, it's not my fucking fault. And it really wasn't. But with Liam, I think it'll be Liam Kelly in goals, Max Aarons at right back, Nasser Jiga back from AFCON, didn't get a game for Burkina Faso, hasn't played for Rangers, therefore hasn't played any football for over a month. So it'll be Max Aarons at right back, Nasser Jiga at centre half. I think it's going to have to be Nsiala also at centre half. I'm going to start off by saying Kieran Dowell, who I think Hull were interested in him. He's probably got, maybe he's been told he's leaving. It's maybe too much for his head or whatever. But if Kieran Dowell, he was on the bench at Pittodrie, so I'm going to say he's going to go in at left back. Maybe he would swap room with Max Aarons. I think he's more right-sided, Kieran Dowell, wouldn't he? He would put Max Aarons at left back and have Kieran Dowell at right back. I'm going to say Kieran Dowell and Max Aarons are your 2 full-backs. Let's say that. Oliver Antman, yes, back in the bench at Pittodrie. Time for him to go. Oliver Antman. Thelwell Asgard, doing well. First team player, but I just don't think he's played enough football. I think he's kind of in and out the team, isn't he? He's coming on as a sub, coming off as a sub. I think Thelwell Asgard might be the one guy that remains. Antman, Thelwell Asgard, CHUKWUANI. I'm hoping CHUKWUANI is ready to go. We're going to see him for the first time. Rabbi Matondo on the right-hand side, and I'm going to have Danilo and Majowski up front. 4-4-2 with Danilo and Majowski, both of who are first-team players but haven't been getting the game time they want. Big Chermiti has really been established himself as the main striker. So I'm going to go Liam Kelly, Max Aarons, Nasser Jiga, Clinton Siala, Kieran Dowell, Oliver Antman, Tello Asgard, CHUKWUANI, whose first name is Tochi, Rabbi Matondo with Danilo and Majowski up front. That's my starting 11 prediction. You've also got the likes of Nadeem Bajrami and Joe Rothwell, who the two of them might be getting transferred. You never know. I think there's certainly interest in Joe Rothwell. They might be negotiating moves or whatever. But Nadeem Bajrami not he's been injured recently, but the manager mentioned that he was kind of getting back towards fitness. So you might get a surprise turn up from guys who've seemed to have been injured recently. They might be going to run out tomorrow. We'd love to see SKOV OLSEN. It'd be absolutely brilliant if he could turn up and play, but I don't know if the negotiations and all that, there'd be too much going on. He's not kind of settled. The manager definitely likes his players to be settled. But that's my prediction. And the score prediction, I'm going to go 3-1. 3-1 to Rangers. I know. I just feel as if we always kind of struggle a bit with this game. And even though there's been no winter break this year, it feels like a psychological break from that. We're changing as a club. You know, but the manager say he's done that, the whole thing there about bridging the gap. I think it's going to be 3-1 to Rangers, and I'm going to end this podcast now before it actually hits the 2 hour mark. At least I've got it up at a decent time tonight, folks. I've given you basically I'm up 24 hours before kickoff. I'm never going to do this again. The idea was to do 2 different pods this week, but it's just no happened. I'm now going to do it. If there's this amount of time between games, I'll do a debrief from the previous game and a preview for the next game as separate podcasts. We've got to get these things shorter. But the first step was getting them up on time. That's a wee change, and I will talk to you from outside a freezing but hopefully victorious Ibrox after the Annan Athletic game. Thank you for your time, folks.